Welcome to the 15th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast, your go-to source for episodic reviews of spring 2017's best currently airing anime. Today marks the 8th week of this season, so we're starting to get deep into the plots of most of these shows. My name is Leo, and I apologize for Armed Girls Machiavellianism. Also with me is Bcom.
Hey, Leo. I'm so glad you apologized. I mean... I would have been angrier if you hadn't, but since you apologized, I forgive you, and we can continue watching this show.
And just as a quick, so everybody knows what's coming on, that actually was probably one of my favorite episodes, and that was one of your most hated, so we'll get into that later.
Wow. Okay.
We have a lot of differing opinions so far in this week's episode, so this will be a really good episode as we both try to school each other and point fingers and say, "Nuh-uh, you're wrong."
Yeah, it's actually interesting. A little inside baseball. Like, Leo and I typically don't talk about the episodes at all until the day of the podcast. And then we come and we look at like the Google Doc, and then we talk to each other for like a couple minutes before the podcast, and we realize how much we disagree on everything. And it's pretty great. It's pretty funny. So yeah, let's kick it off. Sundays, we have Alice and Zoroku, and we had episode 8, The Evil Witch. Okay, so we're finally introducing the two little girls to the story that they teased in the synopsis episode 6.5, 5.5, whatever one it was. So the episode starts out introducing us to a very unfortunate little girl named Hattori. She overhears her parents. They're arguing about her entrance exams for middle school and how like she's not gonna do well enough, and they're all stressed out. They hate each other, and she prays that she can stop being such a useless daughter so her parents will get along again. And this causes a mirror gate to appear, but she doesn't really realize what it is at first. And then we get another scene contrasting Hattori's family life with her friend Ayumu, who is happily eating breakfast with her parents and her little brother, and her life is fine. And when she leaves, she texts Hattori to come cheer for her at her soccer match. He's a soccer player. Hattori's parents, meanwhile, are like just hating each other. Like they're just like standing in the room. Like she comes out to get breakfast, and she's like, "Did anybody make breakfast?" And they're just literally like, the mom is sitting on the couch and the dad is like looking out the window. Like they literally just need to get divorced like immediately.
Yeah, this is an unhealthy relationship. It's probably for the best if you just separate already.
Yeah. So she asks them if they want to come to the soccer match with her, and her mirror gate kind of activates behind her back, and she doesn't realize that it's activated. And strangely, her parents both start acting like they've completely forgotten they hate each other and are all excited about the soccer match. So we quickly find out that Hattori doesn't really know how to control her power. She knows that like some weird things have been happening. Like she'll be on the street and like somebody will be like crossing the street without, paying attention to the crosswalk and everything. And she'll say like, "You shouldn't do that." And then he like backs up to her and doesn't cross. And
she's the Lelouch of Alice and Zoroku.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, her power is like insanely way up like S+ class. Like this is an extremely strong power, which is interesting.
Yeah. And she doesn't really understand it at first. And right. Ayumu does know about her power. Like she notices that these things are happening around Hattori.
And she gets my vote for best friend of the anime season.
Yeah, she's a pretty good friend. Yeah, for sure. She's like really loyal. Hattori takes control of her magic, like at Ayumu's urging. Like they're on the playground and some kids are playing on the field, and she says like, "Use the magic to stop them." And she says like, she holds out her hand, she says "stop" with the mirror gate, and like everybody on the field stops and freezes. And she looks next to her, and Ayumu has also stopped, and she's kind of terrified, but she's able to like touch Ayumu and like shake her awake. And everybody else is still not moving though, and Ayumu's like, "Oh, this is so cool!" Like, and she can also issue commands through Hattori's mirror gate. Like she tells the kids on the soccer field to dance, and they start like dancing like zombies.
I laughed because I thought their dances were funny.
It was kind of weird. So yeah, that's interesting that Ayumu is able to like use Hattori's power as well, which is strange. So Hattori wakes up one morning, though, and she finds out that her parents are stopped like zombies. And she realizes only then that it's her power that has been forcibly making them act like they're happy together. And she decides she can't live like that because if she keeps living in this house, it'll only be filled with lies, is the way she says it. And she tells Ayumu that she's going to leave home, and Ayumu says that she'll go with her, which is like, wow, so you're going to leave your own home and go with Hattori, which is pretty crazy. So in the second half of the episode, we find Alice helping out at the flower shop, and she's like cleaning up and stuff and helping. And she's okay. She
Go for
is
it.
constantly making noises like
I think you're over exaggerating it a little bit.
No, I'm not. Go watch that scene. I am not over exaggerating. She is constantly making
actually
these
had to
stupid
watch
noises.
it twice because
Yeah.
I watched the whole show, then read your stuff, and then I was like, what's he complaining about? I didn't catch that at all. I have to go back, and I went back and watched it.
I don't know how you could not have caught that. It's like
Because it fits her personality exactly. I've met little
it's so
girls
annoying.
with her happy-go-lucky personality, and they just constantly make noises, or you hear them in the room next to you playing, and they are making that noises. That's why I didn't catch it, because I have literally witnessed this multiple times. One other episode, we talked about how big of like a family I have, and then I have a whole bunch of friends that I was just at a Memorial Day party, and friends my age, they had a bunch of kids there. Like, I've seen this. That's why I didn't catch it. That's why it wasn't out of place for me. I was like, oh, that's normal.
All right, so I get that point, but I guess I would have less of a problem with it. But I've been noticing this ever since the second half of this season started. After the synopsis episode, like,
Yeah,
she's
because
been really
bad
happy
crap
and-
quit happening to her the whole time. So
Yeah,
now
but,
she's
like,
more in a positive mood.
I understand girls being in a positive mood and like humming to themselves, but I don't understand it in like every single scene. Like, I just want it to like just act like a normal girl every once in a while.
I do.
And
It's
so anyway, I was annoyed by the stupid noises. It's just a nitpick, whatever. Anyway, I'll move on. So Asahi and Yonaga, the twins, get off the train and they're supposed to visit Alice today. Except they get lost because they have a terrible sense of direction, and like Alice made a map for them, but it's like a really crappy, shittily drawn map. So they end up lost, and they wind up on the main street of Harajuku, which is like a big shopping center in Tokyo. And they run into Hattori, who they don't see at first, but Hattori uses her mirror gate to stop like literally everything on the street, like, and like the blocks next to it, like literally everyone stops in their tracks, including the Hinagiri sisters. And like Hattori and Ayumu basically just use their power to go walk up to a crepe stand and buy a crepe, like buy 2 crepes for themselves, and they go eat, and they're like looking down on the street and they're talking to each other.
Yeah, and they even paid for it, even though they could have gotten away without it.
They did pay for it, which was interesting. They talk about how like their plan is basically they're gonna do whatever they want until they run out of money, and then they like say that even an elementary schooler can get a part-time job with magic. And I was like, yeah, good job, Japan, with those stringent child labor laws. Like, good job. So, but anyway, Ayumu to me didn't seem totally happy with the plan. She seemed like a little bit reserved, but then Hattori clarifies that she can't change any of her orders once she's given them, which is why she can't change her parents back. So Hattori tells Ayumu that she doesn't have to come with her, but Ayumu says that she'll always stay with her since she's still Ha-chan. They're just like, I don't know. And this prompts Hattori to joke that Ayumu is like a super hot guy, which is kind of funny. I liked that.
It was funny, yeah.
So suddenly the zombies of Harajuku start groaning, and the girls run down to find that Alice is trying to get anyone to say something. Like, she had seen that Zoroku had frozen up and everybody in the flower shop had frozen up, and she ran outside, and she's apparently run so far that she can barely talk in between getting out words. I thought that was a little over dramatic because like I don't get that she ran so far. Like, it didn't seem like what's her name? It didn't seem like Hattori and Ayumu had walked very far. So the fact that like Alice was like out of breath and could barely talk didn't seem right to me, just like logistically.
It was so believable to me.
I don't get it. I mean, like, I know she's freaking out.
Yeah,
like,
she's
freaking
panicking.
out.
We don't know actually how far she's run so far. I'm assuming pretty far.
I guess.
She's basically almost hyperventilating at this point. And I just want to say, I don't know how many, a minimum of 8 times, I have probably told a little girl who was literally like running circles around the house when I was at my grandparents or something like that when we were having dinner. And they tried to say something to me. And like I said, a minimum of 8 times, I have told them, stop before you pass out, because they literally cannot get out what they want to say. Okay. I just, these real world examples that I've witnessed multiple times, and then this show does it, and it's so real to me.
That's interesting. Like, yeah,
I think it's good writing. I'm pretty sure either the writer did his homework, but I'm just going to assume he probably grew up with lots of cousins and second cousins and friends with kids. And like, he's just speaking from real world experience. Like, Alice to me is like, I'm pretty sure one of my second cousins is almost exactly this character type he typed up. And I'm just assuming he knows somebody like that. Like, and that's why I had to go back and rewatch these scenes. I'm like, what is Bcom talking about? And I watch him. I'm like, no, that's totally a little girl to me. What?
That's interesting. Yeah.
I just came to the assumption. I'm like, I don't think Bcom's ever been around a little girl before.
Not true. I grew up with plenty of cousins too. Like, yeah, I've seen little girls run around and not lose their breath. But yeah, I guess we're part of it is that Alice is extremely inathletic. Like, she's very weak as well.
Yeah, so we do know that physically she's extremely weak. So it makes more sense.
Let's move on though. So Hattori asks her why she's unaffected by her magic. And then Alice, for some reason, doesn't know what she's talking about. This is the other thing that was weird to me. Like, maybe it's because she's not thinking, but
she's panicking. We know has lack of oxygen to her brain. I mean, she's in full panic mode because Zoroku, who is her anchor, is not there. So yeah, she's totally cutting loose. And then like her like freaking out and trying to smash them is just a good example of like you said earlier, why they need to keep closer watch of her, because she's a ticking nuclear bomb.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, so she doesn't know what they're talking about when they ask her about why she can't control the magic, or why she can control the magic or isn't affected by it, even though she has a mirror gate and would know the most about this, of almost anybody in the world. She doesn't know what's going on. Anyway, she's feeling very frazzled again by all this, which would also play into it. And once she finally calms down for a second and realizes that the two girls are responsible for stopping everyone on the street, including Zoroku, she completely loses her shit, like Leo says. Mm-hmm. Her mirror gate appears and it's like sparking and like lightning is going in between it and stuff. And Alice starts screaming, and then her mirror gate like explodes in front of her. And at first I thought she disappeared because the camera angle was weird and I didn't see her there in the next shot. But the whole town starts moving again. And then Alice is still there in the middle of the crowd, and she says, "I won't let you get away with that."
I think that frame you're talking about, the camera angle, I think they were trying to focus on like the mirror gate disappearing.
Yeah, but it was like really far away, and I thought that Alice would physically have still been in that space. That's why it was weird to me. I thought she had disappeared or something and like removed herself from that reality. Something like she could have done. But anyway, she's still there and she's still super pissed, and she then creates a giant Santa Claus Titan holding a giant mallet out of her mirror gate. And then it swings down at Hattori, but as it touches Hattori's mirror gate, it fractures and disappears right before it hits. And also the crowd around all like see this like in the split second that it's happening, and they're like, "Was that a giant Santa Claus? What the fuck?"
Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
Which I think is an honest reaction, because if I was out walking through town and I suddenly saw a giant Santa Claus and it disappeared within that second, I wouldn't panic. I would turn to my friend and be like, "You saw that too, right?" Mm-hmm. So Definitely. It's just, I don't know. I just like the realism in this show. I think they pay it across pretty well.
So yeah, Alice and Hattori keep trying to use their mirror gates to fight each other. Also, the crowd is watching this the whole time. They're like, "Are those lights? What, do you see that light?" Like, so they're bringing their mirror gates up in front of them, and they keep fracturing and exploding before they can use them.
It's clear that like they're just canceling each other out.
Yeah,
like they're at equal power levels or something.
Alice gets frustrated and she does the loli punching thing where like you don't actually punch, you just lift your arms up and down like you're dancing, and like you hit the person like really softly and it doesn't do anything and it's supposed to be cute. And Hattori's like, "Please stop, what are you doing?" And then pushes her away, and Alice like tries to go after them again but collapses because she's run out of energy. So, and then at the final scene of the episode is Hattori and Ayumu, once they've gotten away, they realize that, like, Hattori realizes what Alice must have been going through in that moment, because she literally turned everybody around Alice that she cared about into a soulless zombie. And she tells Ayumu that she really did turn into an evil witch, which is the way she's always thought about her power, is that of like a witch. She's become a witch, but she doesn't want to become an evil witch based on like a story she read as a kid. But she feels like she is kind of becoming an evil witch.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you would think if you had powers that were magical, that they were magic?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad the show has like returned to a slightly darker tone, but I'm also annoyed that we're not exploring anything more about the research facility and like the government's thoughts on Alice and all of this. At least, like maybe we'll get into that again. But like, I just feel like the whole first half of the show was a waste. Almost like most of the plot of the first half of the show seems wasted to me.
Maybe a little bit, but that's the stuff I didn't want, so I don't mind it's not there.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as interested in a show about cute little lolis finding out that they have powers and being friends together.
I wouldn't call them lollies.
Alice has been sexualized enough that I would call her one. Maybe not Hattori and Ayumu yet. I'm really pessimistic. But,
I would say what you're calling sexualization of Alice is very, very minor.
It's tame compared to like, oh, by the way, so side note, sometimes I follow up on shows by just reading into Reddit threads and seeing like what's going on in shows. Hinako Note, if you remember that, was the show at the beginning of this season that was about a bunch of little girls that was supposed to be cute girls doing cute things, but then I noticed that they got really overly sexual in the first couple episodes. Well, if you've continued to watch that show, I read through a couple Reddit threads and holy shit, it is like constant fan service now. It is just all sexual fan service.
Should we be drinking our way through that one instead?
I hope no. Only one show per season. I can't handle more. I just want to say, like, sometimes my radar for this stuff is on point. So that's all I'll say. But maybe not with Alice.
I'll be honest. I think we nailed it this season. We didn't switch anything out.
Oh yeah, that's
so I feel like we did pick the best of the best, but.
And yeah, this episode gave us a glimpse at what Alice can be like when she loses control, and like that Santa Claus thing probably would have murdered Hattori and Ayumu if
it would have smashed them to oblivion. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal. But that's so funny because then I was interjecting all my notes, contradicting Bcom right into his notes, and all my notes are the ball things in her hair a real thing? How do you get your hair in it if it is?
You're talking about the things Hattori wears, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think you like slip your hair through like a tiny hole in it, and yeah, I think they're real. I don't know if I've actually like seen somebody wearing them in person though. Probably like anime seiyuu have.
Yeah, but how do you get your hair through it and then get it to hold on?
I guess you slip it through. I don't know how.
It's got to be some strange design. I could probably just Google it.
Some wizardry going on there.
Yep.
Yeah, little anime girls making sexy breathy noises out of context is annoying to me, but whatever.
That's not what it was.
It totally was. There's like so many scenes in anime where if like you were just listening to them and you didn't have any context, you would just hear like constantly.
You could take a lot of things out of context. Don't make sense. Yes,
it's
obviously
super annoying. Super annoying.
Like, if anything, I think about this show out of like the rest of the shows this season, I feel like it gets the psychological aspect and points pretty spot on.
Yeah, that's true.
And you say it's true, but I feel like you don't think that. And I'm just like, I think they do a good job, but
I think they do a pretty good job, but like I have my issues with the kind of weird way that the plot has gotten to the place it currently is. And then just like I'm okay. So this is another sidetrack. God, this episode's going to be long.
We're at 20 minutes. Jesus Christ.
Somebody posted like something like Kadokawa has like a light novel contest every year, where they have people like submit submissions of light novels, and then like the winner gets to be published. And it was just interesting because like they're like banning tropes this year. They're like banning isekai stories. So like trapped in another world stories, they're like, if you submit them, we will not consider them because there's just too many of them. And then they're also banning shows based on teenage protagonists. Like if you have a story based on a teenage protagonist, we're not accepting it. There's too many stories about that.
Oh,
and
I totally agree with that one.
I cannot tell you how much I wish they would ban stories about like 13-year-old girls. Like I would pay so much money for them to ban those stories. Like I just can't stand stories about little girls, like with very rare exception, because they.
I was going to say then they wouldn't make Tsuki ga Kirei.
God damn it! Actually, I think they're a little bit older. I know they're middle school.
Yeah, they're middle school,
but they're like third year of middle school. So how
many years of middle school do they have?
I think they go to like 14. I think they have 3 years, and then I'm not sure if they have 3 or 4 years of high school. It's a good question.
I only had 2 years of middle school, so.
Oh, really? I had 3, and then 4 years of high school.
Yeah, and then 4 years of high school.
All right. So let's move on.
Yay. Little Witch Academia, episode 21. Do you remember what it was titled?
There is no title for these.
Oh, they don't?
Not yet, anyway. Yeah.
I thought they did at one point. So
nope.
So anyways, we start off with Andrew who's asking Frank if he knows how to contact Luna Nova because Akko left her hat in this car. And of course, Frank's like, ooh, you're just trying to talk to Akko and blah, blah, blah. But for whatever reason, they're like on a different network and it's hard to contact them. I guess they don't have cell phones. So Frank just suggests, delivering it to her in person, but Andrew thinks this is unnecessary because he feels like he will be meeting with her soon enough anyways because it just keeps happening. They roll up on a protest about a soccer match that was briefly actually mentioned in the last episode. Yeah. And like the reason they're like protesting or storming the streets is because like they thought it ended with like cheating or something like that. They don't go into detail, just that the match didn't end fairly. But there's an app they've been using that helps them with their anger and frustration. It just, makes it go away. But of course, this is Croaks is doing. She's behind this and she's harnessing, their anger emotions for herself. What she's going to do with it, we don't know yet. Ursula is honestly surprised Akko managed to bring Diana back and unlock the 5th word. Yeah, like she's like, wow. The 6th word is Leona. And Ursula says it is one of the most precious words there is. Only those who understand its true meaning can see the light at the end of their paths. Whatever you want to make of that. But Akko goes on her search to find the meaning of the word, and she's like in the library, and like Barbara and Hannah show up. They're, Diana's little minions, and, they actually thank her. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was kind of a sweet scene. They actually thank her for bringing Diana back. Yeah.
Actually being real human beings. But they leave, and then I always just want to say Croaks. What is it?
Qua.
Mm-hmm. All right. But she shows up and she tells Akko Chariot discovered the word in Wagandia. And it seems Wagandia is actually a tree. And Akko then goes to Ursula to tell her about it. But Ursula forbids her from going there because it's going to bloom soon. And the pollen is toxic to witches. And if they come into contact with it, they will lose something forever, is all she says. She's being really mystical or whatever. Mystery. But then the next scene, Diana explains what would happen if you actually came in contact with it as a witch. You would lose your powers as a witch. And I guess through hard work, you could get your powers back, but you would also, for whatever reason, completely use the ability to ever fly again. So Akko has only one thing to be concerned about. But
yeah,
then,
really.
that was my first time. I was like, well, she only has to worry about one of them. Yeah, but Diana's backing up Professor Ursula about she shouldn't go until the tree has finished releasing its pollen and it goes away. But that can take anywhere from like a couple months to like a full year or something. And Akko, is impatient. She is not going to wait that long. Akko's, disheartened about it. She goes to Kwa to explain what happened. And Kwa's like, well, that's strange. The pollen should be a ways off anyways. She's like, Ursula's sometimes scatterbrained. She just probably misthought it or something. And then Kwa even offers to accompany Akko to the tree. Yeah, we know Kwa is up to absolutely no good because we know she's the bad guy. Ursula's looking at like an old photo of her and Kwa when they were younger. Like they were pretty darn good friends apparently. When like her familiar flies in, the crow thing, and like it's like quack quack, it's like quack, quack, quack. And she's like, "What? Akko's stuck in the well." That's seriously what happens. But no, it's just warning him that Kwa and Akko are on their way to the tree, which they have arrived at with plenty of time before the pollen releases. Kwa reaffirms. And then she goes on this spiel of doing a great job of making Akko suspicious of Ursula. Why did she not want her to go to the tree and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But we know Ursula's on her way and she's like flying at top speed, and like one of Kwa's devices like causes her to crash. And then Kwa confronts her and retells about when they first came to the tree. This was where the shiny staff actually chose Ursula over her. And like she got really jealous right away. Kwa only directs Akko now because it's like Ursula's last chance to see her succeed, and Kwa wants her to see Akko fail. So like this is a big old setup for revenge. Yep. So Akko is climbing her way up to the top when one of Kwa's devices turns into like a giant hand, tries to swat her off. Ursula shows up though and saves her by like blasting a hole through the hand. Ursula asks Akko to like grab her hand, but she refuses because, Kwa's seed of doubt from earlier is now working. She no longer trusts her. Excuse me. And we also had like a little shot of some of the buds beginning to open. So we know for sure Kwa was lying about that. And then Kwa shows up and tells Akko to go on while she talks some sense like into Ursula or whatnot. Akko runs ahead and Ursula and Kwa do like just a super quick trade of magic blows, and like Ursula gets knocked unconscious and starts falling to the ground, but Kwa chases after her yelling chariot just in time for her to wake up and stop herself from like smashing into the ground. Kwa's like, oh, the pollen will be released any time now and she won't make it in time to save her, but Ursula says she will protect her no matter what. Like Ursula's super dedicated to this.
And like Kwa's robots are about to chase after Ursula and she says, no, enough, stop, and she lets Ursula go, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, she still seems to somewhat think of her as a friend or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere deep down, she still cares about her a little bit, or at least she cares enough to like make her watch Akko fail to get her revenge, basically, for what happened.
Yeah, so Akko's also almost made to the top, which we find out there's no top. Nobody's ever seen the top. And like that's when all the pollen starts getting released and it's like literally coming at her in a wave. She's like panicking, she slips and like falls from the tree. It's a really cool clip of like just Akko falling and she's like saying this is it, and I was like totally caught up in it. And then like Ursula like swoops in, saves Akko from falling to her death. But in doing so, they go through like a wall of the pollen with Ursula shielding Akko, and they crash land. So I have a feeling Ursula's not going to have magic soon.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That could
they straight up went through it, and they crash land. So I'm assuming she lost her ability, so she probably doesn't have magic right now either. There was just I thought this was out of nowhere, but there was just a quick flashback of like Kwa, and from the last flashback, she was like attacking her, but then she's hugging Ursula and telling her it chose you, so it's okay.
Yeah,
I totally missed that transition. It got lost somewhere.
It was strange. Yeah, so it's back when they're kids, and like in the previous scene, Qua was really upset that Ursula had been chosen to take the staff and get the Grand Triskelion, but then like Ursula is crying to Qua saying like, it should have been you, why did it choose me, I don't want this, and Qua hugs her and says it's okay.
There's a whole scene that's missing in between those two.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, it seems like
it was just too abrupt to me. I was like, whoa, that was out of nowhere.
I feel like her heart hasn't like hardened against Ursula yet after like years of stewing over it, like where she is now. Like I think in that moment she looks at her friend crying and she's like, she's still my friend, I need to support her. Yeah, it was a pretty sweet moment, even if it was a little jarring.
Yeah, Ursula, she apologizes to Akko for maybe forcing her own wishes on her, and Akko's like saying she's sorry for ever doubting her while crying. It's a cute scene. But this causes the sixth word to activate, which is, I'm assuming, forgiveness. Is that what you got to?
Yeah, where did I forget if I wrote it down? But yeah, there was some kind of line about exactly what it was, but it was like it was like thanking your friend like sincerely, or like forgiving them. Yeah, Leon, whatever that means.
So Ursula, what? I wrote Ursula. No, Qua is back at her lab. My mind's stuck on sexy Ursula. Qua is back at her lab where she says she will like use the most forceful way she can think of and take the seal off the Grand Triskelion and break it. And that's what we end that episode on. So another really good episode.
Yeah. So here's the problem. Not with this episode, but with the show in general, is that now there's 4 episodes left, and we're in right smack in the middle of like a huge arc for Akko and for Ursula and for Qua and for Diana eventually.
Well, we only have one word left, right?
Yeah, there's one word left. There is not going to be any more Susie episode. Like there's just no way. It's over. The dream is dead. Like there's no background episode for Susie, which I think is a big mistake. Like I think they should have done a better background episode for her.
Yeah, and you also note their lack of appearance in the last couple episodes. Like they kind of got left out.
Yeah, this is like if you look at the OP, like where Akko and Diana cross past each other and become Chariot and Qua. Like this is all about them now. Like this is their story. I'm sure that Susie and Lotte and like the rest of the girls will play like some kind of role in the ultimate outcome of this. I'm sure it'll be great, but yeah, it's very much about that.
I expect everybody to be involved in like the last big battle and stuff like that, all working together.
For sure.
I definitely see that happening, which is exactly what I want and I think would be awesome.
When do you think Ursula is finally going to admit she's shiny chariots? Like she's had so many opportunities to do it at this point.
Yeah, and like there was once or twice where she was straight up going to tell her, but something got interrupted. And, you know, I just don't know why. During a little scene where they're like apologizing to each other, she could have been like, and actually, I've been shiny chariot this entire time or something. And I think that would have been even cooler.
Because, yeah, Qua started using it against Ursula this episode by like planting that seed of doubt in Akko. Like, because Ursula has been lying to Akko by admission for so long, that's like something that Qua can use to split the gap between them. But we'll see.
Well, I will say Ursula hiding her identity is justified. She has some reasoning. We don't know why. Yeah. So, of course, she wouldn't tell Akko, you know? But now it's kind of to the point to where it's like, maybe you should go ahead and tell her. And I think she's just struggling with that.
Okay. All right. You ready to move on?
Let's move on to Mondays.
All right. We've got Grimoire of Zero, episode 8, Serena's granddaughter.
I will take
Serena's granddaughter.
Yeah. I will say the surprise in this episode completely blindsided me.
Me too.
I usually have some idea of something's coming. Nope. No idea. I think my jaw literally dropped. I was like, there was zero foreshadowing about this. That came out of nowhere, but wow.
I can't believe you were surprised that they wanted to put another lolly in this anime.
Oh, God.
Okay, so Wolf Dude, who we later find out in this episode is named Hold'em, so I'll just call him Hold'em. He reveals to Mercenary that Serena imbued him with the soul of a wolf. He made his own decision to become a Beast Fallen. And that's because he was formerly a knight stationed at the royal palace, and he was the third son in a noble family, so he couldn't inherit anything over his brothers. So he wasn't really sure what to do with his life, and then he meets Serena. And when he does, he's this like blonde, blue-eyed dude, and he's been living in luxury with like beautiful girls feeding him grapes. Like he's at the house of like.
Why do you
these
talk
girls.
about me like that? Jeez, Bcom.
Oh, God damn it. I knew this is what you lived like. And so unfortunately, like one of those women was married who's like attending to him, and her husband rushes in and causes a huge scene, and he has to like go on the run because like they're searching for him. This was interesting because like we see that like this is what Wolf Dude's life used to be like. He would just like go around and like constantly have girls all around him, like attending to him. So it kind of puts the episodes where he's like taking these prostitutes as slaves into a different light, just because I still don't forgive him. He's still an awful person for doing that. No,
but it kind of explains why he did it.
It explains why he was doing it. It's because he's trying to relive like the good old times for him. So anyway, he collapses with exhaustion as he's running away from this husband, and that's when he is approached by the witch Serena, who's holding a baby in her arms at the time. And it turns out it's her grandchild, who she's raising by herself because the parents are gone. And the guy says he'll help out with raising the baby. He's like really gung-ho about this. And Serena's like, no, I have no need for some cowardly manservant who's like on the run. And he says, well, make me into a beast then. But she still rejects the idea. But then as she's like walking away, the grandchild grabs out for Hold'em's hair and like tugs on it and smiles at him. And Serena realizes that, hey, like maybe this is something that could work out. So Serena performs this ritual and turns him into a Beast Fallen. So now he no longer had to worry about his pursuers coming after him, because how could they know who he was? And also at the time, the witches were at peace. He's telling Mercenary this because at the time, since the witches were at peace with the Beast Fallen, he didn't have to worry about being hunted for his head or anything. And he says even now, the only witches who are looking for Beast Fallen heads are those who are too weak to turn somebody into a Beast Fallen by themselves anyway. And the only nobles who would be buying heads on the market are those obsessed with demonic rituals. And there aren't that many of those people.
They're wives that were obsessed.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. So Mercenary realizes that Zero basically would have no reason to have taken his head, and he was stupid to think that she would want it in the first place. So anyway, 13, we get a scene with him. He's visiting Albus in this cell, saying, this is your last chance. Join me to put down this witch rebellion. And he says, like, you know specifically why I'm asking you. And at this point, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's been heavily hinted that Albus is related to Serena in some way. And I'm guessing that's the reason. So anyway, Hold'em says he was there when Serena sacrificed herself to the mob during that plague. And we get a scene of that flashback, and she asks him to take care of her granddaughter and escape. And we finally learn that his name is Hold'em, and he's been searching for Serena's granddaughter ever since she swore revenge for her grandmother's death. And Mercenary tells Hold'em that they've been on their trail, but have just missed Serena's granddaughter, and the guy they call him, they only refer to him as him, who's the head of like the Sorcerers of Zero. And Hold'em concludes that Serena's granddaughter must have the Grimoire of Zero wherever she is. So Zero wakes up. She's still wrapped in bandages, and 13 has placed a barrier over the room's door, blocking her escape. This is my biggest problem with what has been happening to this show. Zero is now Asuna in a birdcage. She is locked in a room. She is serving as a shield for the main character while he goes and does cool things. And she's locked in a room and can't do anything for however long. I actually posted on Twitter, like, for every episode that Zero remains locked in a room serving as a shield for the male main character, I'm dropping my mouse score by a point.
I actually misread that for, I don't know how, because like it just popped up in my, and I just looked at from the notification tab. I didn't go to Twitter, so it didn't show the whole thing. So I thought at first you said for every episode that she's locked in that room, I like this show better or something like that, because I like, you hate her, I feel like. And like that's how I took it at first. And then like when I was eventually scrolling through Twitter, and then I saw what you fully went, I went, oh, that's not what he said.
Makes more sense that way, yeah. Oh, that's funny, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm just really annoyed. I hate this trope in anime where you have a badass female protagonist and then you lock her in a room halfway through the anime so she can't do anything. It happens all the time and I'm sick of it. So, in any case, in the end, let's see, Albus refuses to join 13's cause because he believes Zero and Serena were right, that magic can be spread properly to the masses if only they remove the rogue witches. And not all the, and not kill just like every witch. And then 13 disagrees and says he'll use Albus's life to his full advantage somehow. We don't really understand what he's saying yet. So a huge crowd is gathered in Plasta's town square to view the execution of Albus. And just before this scene, we see Mercenary and Hold'em are on the road and they're walking along, and then like a carriage like rides by and they yell like, we're gonna be late for the witch execution. And then so Mercenary and Hold'em start rushing back, and we realize that like he realizes Albus is the one who didn't give in to 13 and is going to be executed. So Albus is raised up in the middle of the town square on this like crucifix thing, and Hold'em points out at Albus and says, that's her. And Mercenary is really confused at first. He's like, what do you mean her? And then Hold'em insists, no, that Albus is Serena's granddaughter.
And this is where my jaw dropped to the floor.
So like, because there was no hint of this at all.
There was
hints
no
that he's related
up
to Serena, like, and that he knew Serena and stuff, and then he knew Serena's mother. Like, there would be hints that he was a boy, but there was literally no hint that he was a girl ever in this show, I don't think. Not even like a slight hint.
Nope.
So, yeah, it really puts in context those scenes where he's snuggling up to Mercenary in bed with Zero.
Because the lollies are all about that tiger beast falling.
Yeah, really makes you think about that now. Really makes you think about all those scenes where they talk about being his sex slaves and how happy they are to serve as his sex slaves. Really makes you think about
I guess it does now.
It really does.
It almost makes it better. I wouldn't say it makes it better, but it's like, because you just thought it was a young boy and girl first, but now it was just two girls.
Just a young girl and a younger girl, you know. Good times.
God.
Anime. Anyway, moving on. So 13 uses his like silver tongue to convince the crowd in the town square that he would never hurt someone else with his sorcery, but also that he's going to burn all the witches and return Wenius to peace. And then he gets cheers. And Mercenary wonders like, where the hell is Zero? We need her power to stop this. And then Albus speaks up. She implores the witches and the crowd to stand up and fight because she reveals that she's the descendant of Serena. And this execution, just like Serena's killing, will be a call to action for everybody. And at that point, the fire is lit at the base of Albus's like crucifix, and Mercenary and Hold'em leap into action. They start running towards the middle of the town square, and Mercenary throws like a flashbang type grenade to distract the crowd and cause a panic. And then Hold'em eventually reaches Albus as she's like passing out and tackles her off the platform. And then reinforcements start moving in, but Hold'em escapes with Albus in his arms. And Mercenary and 13 make eye contact in the confusion as everybody's running away. And 13 like launches this like vine attack to try and trap him. And but then his guards like jump in front of him saying like, it's too dangerous, sir. And they try to like shoot at Mercenary. But then 13 stops them saying, no, you'll hit Zero. Because he understands the spell that she placed on Mercenary, that any damage that Mercenary takes, Zero actually takes. So
yeah,
13 cares about that.
I would like to make a quick note. This isn't the only show this season to actually do a gender reveal, but we'll get back into that later.
Oh, no, it's not. So Mercenary disappears with the help of a smoke grenade. and he and Hold'em get away in a horse-drawn cart, basically, but they're being chased by royal soldiers. So Mercenary starts throwing like barrels and like farm tools off the back of the cart to like take these pursuing soldiers out. And then like one huge dude like jumps in the cart and starts like hand to hand like punching him. And then like Hold'em's like, I've got some good news and some bad news. And the good news is like the big guy standing up in the cart just gets fucking destroyed by a passing tree branch.
You see, and that's something I knew was going to happen before it did. I was like, oh, they're gonna go through like a low bridge or a tree branch, and he got hit by a tree branch just seconds before it happened. I predicted that, but I didn't predict the granddaughter thing. That just blew my mind, dude.
So the bad news is that the horses don't care about their lives, apparently, and they go jump off a cliff and into a river way down below. And the royal commander like rides up to the edge of the cliff and says like, well, we can't follow them from here, basically, and kind of assuming that they're dead. But of course they're not dead. And 13 realizes Mercenary and is probably not dead. A beast fallen wouldn't have died from falling that far. So he tells his subordinate to send the assassins after them because he wants them alive, which is like, maybe don't send assassins if you want them alive. Like, maybe send like somebody else.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's where we're left. I want to say that this is probably the best episode of the show for me by far, because the plot really started moving at like a good clip. We got about a lot of backstory and clarification on like the major characters, their motivations. We got this huge reveal with Albus and who she really is and why she's so important and why she's even been a part of this story up to now.
I thought it was because Zero was only in it for 20 seconds.
That was also a good reason. But yeah, I hate that trope of locking the girl in a cage so she can't do anything. If you go watch a whole bunch of anime, you'll notice it's literally all the time.
Go save the princess that's locked away.
Yep.
I mean,
so yeah, but that was weird that Albus is like what you would call in anime an otokonoko, which is like a girl who like looks and acts in every way like a boy. So yeah, it's weird that I just had no indication at all. And none. I don't know.
Yeah, I kept trying to think back, and I was like, was there anything they hinted this at? And there's just a big old fat no.
Yeah, which part of me feels like that's bad writing. Like, I feel like there should have been some tiny hints.
Well, wait, didn't we think that he might be somehow related to?
Oh yeah, we knew that he was related. I think that was like pretty clear for a long time. I think we guessed that around like episode 2 or 3. But
yeah, but the way they presented it, we didn't.
Yeah,
I just never came to the conclusion of that's actually a girl.
So that's interesting. But anyway, let's move on.
Yay. Okay. Wednesday's Sakura Quest. Episode 9, The Ladies' Scales. Shiori is like super fidgety because she has now accepted the lead role for their next project for the expo thing. The girls end up at Angelica's cafe and get dinner. The fact that like two of them like order somen, is that right? Somen?
Yeah, somen noodles. Yeah,
somen, and like the other two people in there, Sandal guy and the bus driver, are also eating somen. Suddenly gives Shiori an idea. So she goes home that night. She writes up a proposal to run a somen expo / contest with the board of merchants. She does that because that should also please them, since people will be purchasing a lot of the wheat from them to make the soma. Pretty clever, makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And they're also going to have like a farmer's market next to it further to help convince the old lady. And it turns out it works. She just the whole time just wanted them to show their own support for the board of merchants while they do their tourism thing. More or less, they go around, they manage to convince different groups of people to also participate in this event and make their own soma. I lolled so hard at the flashback scene of Kumano deciding that was the moment he would go to France and perfect his French toast just because Shinomiya thought it was delicious. She eats it, she's like, oh, it's so good. And he's just like, and this was the moment I decided I would go to France.
Well,
and
I remember in middle school, I had like a brief cooking class, like as part of like elective courses that we had to take in middle school. And I remember making French toast for that class. And if a really, really cute girl had told me that my French toast was delicious, I can't say that I wouldn't have gone to France and pretended that French toast came from France.
So I immediately saw this, and just like most things you assume came from someplace, I was like, I bet French toast doesn't come from France. So I was going to do my research and see where it originated.
Yeah, the show did it for you.
But then the show immediately did it for me, and I got to clap for you. That was amazing.
Good job, Sakura Quest.
Yeah. Of course, it's Riri who knows because she knows all these obscure things. But she's like, oh, no, it didn't. It didn't originate in France. It was some guy named John French that actually invented it here in America.
Yeah.
So that was awesome.
John or Joseph French? I'll look it up.
It was John Joseph. It was she just threw a name out there. But the point was his last name was French, so which is why they named it French toast. And if you want to know how to make French toast, the easiest thing in the world. Dip some bread in some egg that you mixed up, fry it in a pan, put some sugar and cinnamon on it, French toast and syrup.
It's Joseph French. He was an innkeeper in Albany, New York. He created the dish in 1724.
Yeah, we finally get a little bit reveal.
Oh, wait, hold on. I got to tell you this. He advertised it as French toast because he was grammatically inept and forgot the apostrophe. He should have called it French's toast, but he didn't have the grammar to call it that. So that's why it's called French toast.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, everybody who listens to this podcast, we are experts on the origins of French toast.
Hey, I love French toast. I'm glad to know more about it.
It's delicious, but do you know between the sugar, cinnamon, and the syrup, there's just...
You're saying it's part of a balanced breakfast?
Sugar is so stinking bad for you, it's not even funny.
Oh, it's not sugar. It's just maple syrup, Leo.
Okay. But moving on, we finally get somewhere a little bit with why Shino, Mia, and Kumano didn't meet up that night because it was mentioned in the last episode also. They were supposed to meet before we went to France. We find out so far, we get more into it later on, is that they both waited till midnight. With even the right date, and that's where it becomes important later on. They both thought...
And on the same bench, mysteriously.
Yeah. So we have no ideas what happened so far. And like I put a note, I said, I repeat, do not pull a Fuka on me, Sakura Quest. like they were on like opposite sides of the thing for like hours on end. Oh my God.
I assumed that they were like somehow sitting just like literally on the other side of like a vending machine at first. But it seems like it's more complicated than that.
Yeah. And I'm glad they didn't go there. Thank you. So secretly, Yoshino has been working with Dokushima, who is the mechanic guy who likes to make crazy devices and stuff, on a Soman project. And like she shows up at his shop at night and like she undresses but like has a bathing suit on. Like at first it was like
and he's
misleading.
Like,
and you're like, what? Yeah, and then she's like, let's do this. And I'm like, what? And then just ends the scene.
The lighting is like so dark too. It's like,
yeah, I was like, that was ominous.
Oh my God, I can't wait for that. Keep going.
So anyways, the expo has started, and I guess this town always has perfect weather unless it does something to the story, like when they were shooting the movie. You didn't notice that? Otherwise, it has like the best weather ever.
It does have really nice weather. Yeah, it's always nice in the countryside, I guess.
Uh-huh. And then when Shiori, who has the biggest boobs in the show, it's important, suggests to Erika, the little girl, that they're happy someone can increase bust size, she like orders a bowl, which she wouldn't at first, because she looked at what's her name? The M word. Blah blah blah. Maki?
Yeah.
Her younger brother. She has a crush on her younger brother, and so like she sees him and she's like, yes, I'll take some immediately. But then it's really funny because it's Riri who gives her the bowl, and like she looks at Riri and then looks at her boobs and looks up back at her, and she's like, it's not too late for you. You can try. Dude, I was just lolling because Riri's like, what? And I didn't know this episode had a lot of jokes in it, and then they came out of nowhere. It was super, super funny.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the part you really like. The Queen Yoshino has some words for the expo, and she surprises everybody by like showing up in her swimsuit, like from we saw earlier. And she has a whole new way of enjoying salmon, and I'm just going to hand this scene off to you, Bcom, because you enjoyed it so much.
Okay, so she's up on stage, and she like unveils this huge machine that like that inventor guy, the mechanic guy, created. And it's, what is this called? It's like the 5DX overflowing somen machine. And you know,
it's almost nonsense.
There's that tradition in Japan to have like flowing somen noodles that you like have like running down like a bamboo like pipe and with water, and you grab the noodles as they come off and you can eat them and stuff. So this machine has like 4 pipes aimed at you, and you sit down. It's like an arcade cabinet, and it's like, ready, go. And she starts trying to eat the somen and like dip them and eat them, except like the machine like has like, it shows like the flowing waters on the screen, and then like the tubes start like firing water out at Yoshi, and she gets like freaking drenched in water. And then like the machine starts like malfunctioning and just starts spitting noodles all over her. And so it looks like she just went through a very like hentai-esque scene by the end of this.
Basically.
And she's got like noodles and stuff all over her body and her face. And she like, there's like, it cuts and like people are like kind of applauding like, what was that? And then in the next shot, like she's like trying to walk off stage and she can like barely walk, and I was just laughing so hard throughout this whole scene. It was so funny to have this.
I feel like they
everything.
Intentionally were just trying to make a parody of like a fucked up hentai.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like,
yeah,
I just love that like it was Yoshino's idea to do this. She thought this was going to be like a good way to sell somen, and like she was like so confident about doing this in front of like a crowd of hundreds of people. And then like in general the crowd like enjoys it too. They laugh at it and they're like, oh, this is funny.
The little kids are like running up, they're like, I want to ride it next.
Oh yeah, that little girl who was like, I want to get on it too, mommy. I was like, oh my god. No, please don't. Save that girl.
So then we find out, you know, because this was also a competition, who the winner was, and it was whatever the town's called, Manoyama Mom's Club. They won, so they were part
like
of the board.
The Mommies Working Together Club or something. It's
something
called,
like that. Yeah. But they won it, and they're part of the board of merchants, I assume. So yeah, she won it. So you know, whatever. But Shiori still gets like praise from people for her dish was still really good. The happy salmon.
And like hers had like natto and like kombu and something else in it. And I was just like, my experience with natto in Japan, I would not like this dish.
I don't know. I'm a very picky eater, but I do like sours, and I really like cheeses. I haven't met a cheese I don't like. Mm-hmm. So I feel like natto would be one of the really weird things that I would like.
It's possible you could like it. I don't know. It's very acquired taste for sure.
Yeah, fermented beans, correct?
Yes.
And all sticky.
Very, very sticky.
Did you have to spit it out, or did you manage to swallow it?
Oh no, I swallowed what I ate of it, but I couldn't eat a lot of it. I just like had to stop.
And it was generally pretty disgusting to you.
Yeah, just like the texture and everything, and like the smell was not great. There's so many things I would rather eat.
Even from watching a bunch of anime, it seems to be one of those dishes where people either love it or hate it.
Exactly. It's like if you grew up with it, like you kind of love it. If you didn't, then it's like, what is this thing?
Yeah, but there's like an old lady praising her dish. She's like, can I make this at home? And then there's like there's a guy who I'm assuming is the owner of Angelica's Cafe asking if he can serve it in his restaurant. Because then we get I'll get to it in a minute. But then Shiori's pretty clever. And in an earlier scene, she found out that the calendar was up wrong. It was last year's calendar. They hadn't updated it. So she assumes that what happened with Kumano and Shinomiya's meeting is that what happened. And it just turns out they're both airheads. And she was looking at an old calendar and showed up on the wrong day. And so she just sets it up so the two meet up at the their tourist center or whatever, and and they laugh it off, and I think they like hey, he like tells her just to come to his restaurant and have dinner, and they both kind of realize they like each other. So, and then there's like the scene of Yoshino sitting on a bench, and like the girls walk up and they pull like a noodle out of her hair.
A noodle out of her hair. It's still a noodle there. And they're like, "Don't worry, you did really well. It was a great presentation."
And then like Yoshino's like praising Shiori. She's like, you're really good at the mediation of people or whatever. And she's like, I'll give you the title of Minister of Mediation because you're the only one without a title. And like, and Shiori she's like, I immediately resign. She doesn't like it. And then Angelica's is now serving the happy Soman. We just get a final shot of like the bus driver walking in and going, you know what I want. And then it cuts to like a shot of like their little chalkboard menu saying now serving happy Soman. So I don't know who that guy was.
Oh, I think that was the bus driver. Takamizawa is his name. But yeah, that wraps up that episode of Sakura Quest, which I felt was a little bit more fun than the previous episodes, and definitely a little bit more funny. So, Leo, why don't you take us into the next show?
Busou Shoujo Machiavellianism, episode 9, The Day Love Died. Did you like this episode?
No.
This is so funny because this is your most hated episode, and this might be my
I don't know if it's
favorite.
Like my most hated. I guess it would. It's my episode I felt like the most indifferent about, because like I just didn't understand at any point why I should care about what was happening, except for one thing which you'll point out. But
you shouldn't care about this show. You're watching it wrong.
But then why are we watching it?
Because it's entertaining. It's not.
Oh man, why don't you take it away with it? So honestly, like as I was watching this episode, I was like, I wonder how Leo is gonna like do a synopsis of this, because like every time something happens in this episode, I just feel like I need to turn my brain off and like reject everything I'm seeing as like unimportant. So anyway, I'm interested in your synopsis.
Okay. I kind of wrote like a short version because I came with the show, because a lot of stuff's not important. It's just like little side jokes and I don't know.
Yeah, it was hard for me to distinguish between what was like actually important plot wise and what was just like a little joke throwaway thing. A lot of the time.
Some of them are just like a scene to transition to the next scene of why so and so shows up where.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that. So like those things I just totally cut out. So like it's got a pretty short synopsis. But anyways, Kiru, who is like that girl that can totally kick everybody's ass, has apparently left the room, and it's such a big deal that like makes the principal order no classes for the day. Like this is a big problem. And they've also noted that she's been carb loading. And if you're unfamiliar what that is, it's like when you eat just a ton of carbs the day before a physical event, like a marathon, for example. When I ran across country, we always had pasta parties the night before, just so we could carb load like crazy. It's just supposed to be a way to get you some extra energy for like endurance things and whatnot. But there's this funny scene of like the feminine guys and like the bath, and like they see a monster that's outside that's like just ahead with like a big hair, which is completely Chouka's hair outline to me.
Oh really? So I didn't notice that when they first showed
I
it.
thought it was Chouka.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But it's like peeping at them in the bath, and like it, and like they go running off to like Nomura, and they're like, "You gotta help us! There's a monster peeping us in the bath and whatnot." And then we also find out like the little bear has gone missing.
Mm-hmm. Domo.
And
his name is Domo.
My note is, Bcom, I'm happy to tell you that Chouka's hair was a wig this whole time, and it's missing also.
I don't even know how to react to this. Like, now do I just like hate her character for like thinking that this wig was a good idea, or do I hate the people who designed her character for now designing her with two different sets of hair?
Or do you like it because the show is admitting that the hair is so ridiculous it had to be a wig?
That it was fake?
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost want to give it credit for that too now. Like by far, like this is mostly what I thought about for the rest of this episode was this wig. And like how
I just stuck on it so hard.
I was just like, how do I feel about this? Like, I don't know. I was like thinking about this for like 20 more minutes. So why don't you continue?
Okay, yeah. So, and then there's like, this is the whole part where it's just these scenes for people to be in the same place at the same time. And we find out the monster in the bath turns out to be the little bear wearing Chouka's wig.
Dun, dun, dun.
It was just goofing off and having fun. But then Chouka comes out, which this surprised me that the show did this. Chouka comes out without her wig, and she just has like short blue hair.
She's really cute with that short blue hair, I have to say. She has like a little bit of it sticking up in the back. It was kind of cute.
I think she's a better character that way. But I'm surprised they just didn't give the wig back to her. But like her wig like got totally messed up because of course the bear was like dragging around and stuff. Mm-hmm. But so Jason Mask Girl. Wait. Yeah, it's Jason, not Michael Myers. Sometimes I know the difference between them, but it's easy to accidentally say the wrong one. I try not to. So Jason Mask Girl has lost her mask and goes to Tamaba on the rooftop. And I would like to note, if you immediately look at them, they both have the exact same curl of the hair on the top.
They both have the exact same eyes too.
Yeah,
like that's what tipped me off. Yeah.
Yeah, and you remember last episode I said they're probably twins.
You were right.
No, they're sisters.
Well, they are sisters, but I think they're kind of twins. They look very similar. They have different hair. That's
they distinctly call one older than the other one, but still one of the twins has to be older. But they didn't say twins, they just said sisters. And so like you get like the flashback scene of like the Jason Mask Girl standing at like the top of the playground acting like, I should be looking down on the world and whatnot. And then the younger sister climbs up top with the long hair. No, not the long hair. She had short hair at the time. She comes up top and she goes, and the older sister goes to shove her off. But then the younger sister throws her off instead and says, no, this is my spot in the world. And like, she assumed her older sister's identity to the point their mother couldn't even thought she was the older one.
See, that's why I thought they were twins, but I guess they never actually said that.
Yeah. So Kirei, the Empress, has then confronted Tamaba on the rooftop. And for some reason has taken offense to what she did to Nomura. They don't explain this at all. It was like she's defending him for what? I don't know.
I don't get it either.
Yeah, but then Tamaba's like, well, I have no business with you. I'm going to leave anyway. She like goes to leave and walk past her when she pulls her blade. But Kirei is way faster and like slices her first with her hand. And then like her minion, which is her sister, like shoots a blow dart at her, stopping her from like hitting with the finishing blow to Tamaba. And then like Tamaba looks at her and she's like, hey, you should be looking at me, and not at her with like her sword ready to slice her. But then it cuts to a later scene with Kirei having like both girls beaten and getting ready to deliver the final blow again, when Tamaba's sister starts to rush her, and like Kirei ends up stabbing her instead. And then like by tasting the blood, she can tell they are sisters, and that's where the crazy backstory scene happened. Oh yeah, so like Kirei also has like this attack called auto counter, where basically like no matter what attack you throw at her, like she auto counters it and like stabs you and like starts getting blood. Well, also, you kind of mentioned that quickly. I just want to point out, like, she tastes the blood from Tamaba's sister and licks it and says, oh, I guess you are her sister. Like, she can tell from licking her blood that she's her sister. Yes. It's fucking stupid. I was like, are you fucking Well, her skin, they also make a point to look, they're like, was her skin made of steel? Because like it shows where they connected with blows and it sliced through her clothing, but it didn't slice her skin. Yeah. But anyways, Tamaba seeing her sister down actually causes her to show some emotion and like cry. But then Kirei like stabs her anyways. With her hand, by the way. I'm just saying, her hand's like a blade, basically. Yes. At this point, Robbie shows up and like engages her immediately, but both Robbie and her bear get sliced down right off the first attack. Oh yeah, and that's where her clothes tear, and they were like, what is she made of, steel? And then there's just like this final scene of like Nomura walking towards Tsukuyo and her slicing towards his neck with like Nomura acting surprised as the final shot. It was fun. It's just like felt like so many random things were happening, and like it all revolved around characters that I don't really care about in this show. Like I care about Nomura and what like mask faced girl and maybe what's her name with the bear,
And those are the only characters I really... Yeah, Warabi. And like Warabi was here, but like I didn't care about her fighting this girl. Like I didn't get it.
It was literally a 5-second fight scene.
Yeah, but I don't understand like why they're even fighting.
I don't know. I thought it was really interesting that Tamaba was so easily defeated by Kiru, and we know how strong Tamaba is. And the only reason Nomura won against her is because he got naked.
Yeah, and distracted her. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, Kiru is clearly the final boss here. But we get to have a next episode where Nomura is going to talk to a blind lolly for 30 minutes or whatever, and that'll be fun.
Well, they ended fighting already, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, her sword stopped before hitting his neck, so I guarantee she's going to be holding it there and then talking to him. No, they did a like
freeze frame of her slicing towards his neck.
But he's clearly not going to have his head chopped off. Like, I mean...
No, either she's going to stop or he's going to...
She's clearly the type of character who likes to talk. Or his surprise
is going to be a trick, and he's going to deflect it or get out of the way in time or something like that.
Interesting.
That's all I got. You know, Chouka's hair.
Chouka's hair is
so ridiculous that the show even recognizes it.
Fucking wig. Where do you even go to get a wig like that? That's what I want to know.
Maybe she made it herself.
That'd be impressive.
I think most cosplayers what they do is they buy a wig similar to what they want, and then they style it from there.
You know what would make me like this show? If Chouka's backstory for that wig had been she took the hair from like people that she killed who tried to enter the academy.
Oh God!
Then I would like her character. Okay.
Jeez.
So Thursdays we got Tsuki ga Kirei and episode 8, which is called Vida Sexualis. So,
what does that even mean?
The sexual life or something? I don't know. Actually, let's look it up because this is like important now. I'm looking it up. I'm assuming it's an Osamu Dazai story or something. But let's see. Vida Sexualis is an erotic novel published in 1909 by Mori Ogai. Okay.
That's
like I don't know exactly what it means in like Latin, but Latin for sex power, the power of sex in life. That's what Google says. Okay,
that's a lot for a first kiss. Jesus,
hell yeah! Spoilers, Leo. Okay, so at the beginning of this episode,
this whole shit podcast is spoilers.
Akane's friends are noticing that the news has spread about Akane's relationship. And meanwhile, Kotaro is continuing to practice for the festival and thinking about the kiss that almost happened. And he's pondering the Osamu Dazai quote, "There is such a thing as love in this world. I'm sure of it. It's the expression, the etiquette of love that is so hard to find." And it just...
What does Dazai not quote?
Yeah, there's so many Dazai quotes in the show. Kotaro has read like everything by Dazai, apparently. Yep. But it parallels him not knowing how to express his love for Akane quite yet. So anyway, at school, Kotaro and Akane are both enduring their friends' like questioning about being in a relationship. And Miu asks Akane, like, what do you even like about Kotaro? And she doesn't really have an answer. She's like, or she's just too embarrassed to say at that point. And her friends tell her to keep them posted on when she gets her first kiss from him, but they doubt that Kotaro has the guts. So Akane and Kotaro are like feeling all eyes on them during classes, and when school lets out, Roman gives Kotaro the idea of waiting for Akane after practice instead of just going home, so they can go home together. And so Kotaro runs after Akane to let her know, and there's this brief shot of Kotaro running in the distance to catch up with Akane, and it's that thing that's common in animation in between scenes where if you have somebody running towards the camera in the distance, it looks like they're not moving at all. And this one was particularly bad looking. This show continues to suffer from brief bouts of like really crappy looking animation in between other beautiful scenes. So it's unfortunate. So they plan to hang out in the library after practice, and Akane also clearly feels good about not having to lie to her friends anymore. She could see them after practice and they're like, "Hey, do you need to go?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do." And she just goes off, and they're okay with it. They're a little jealous that she has a boyfriend. And one of the track girls says like, I just don't get boyfriends. They're such a hassle, you know. But Akane doesn't feel that way. So before entering the library, Akane like sprays a little bit of like scent on herself. And I think it was a throwback to like soap scented perfume from the short in the previous episode. And so that was kind of cute. And they eat together. And in general, you can tell that there's so much more relaxed being around each other than they have been previously. They have this like easy flowing conversation about their clubs and school. And then Kotaro gets a text asking him to come to practice for the Hayashi Festival. And Akane gets excited and asks if she can tag along. And she does. And he's a little nervous to have her there. She's like standing in the corner. And then the adults start noticing her and they're like, hey, who's that? And they're like, oh, it's his girlfriend. Yeah. And they're like embarrassing Kotaro. So Akane is like looking on as Kotaro is dancing with his drumsticks and stuff for the festival practice, and the look on her face is like so entranced, like looking at him. And
that dancing's like, I don't know if I even call that dancing. It's
you know what I would call it? Vita sexualis.
Oh my, no, I do not agree with that description at all.
A lot of people have noticed that Kotaro is facing away from Akane this whole scene, and she's like really staring at him. They're like, oh, she must be into that booty, that Kotaro
she's
booty.
A butt girl.
Oh yeah.
Whatever, each their own.
So it was a nice scene. Kotaro's like little mentor from the bookstore like suggests that he and Akane visit a shrine that has wind chimes going on right now. And the old man who runs like the festival slips like some extra money into Kotaro's palm. It's like, don't spend it all in one place, little kid, kind of thing.
It was 10,000 yen, right?
It was 1,000 yen bill, which is like $10 basically.
Yeah,
but it comes in handy later. So Akane goes home and like I guess dresses in a yukata and then meets back up with Kotaro to go to this shrine. They eat some like they looked like sweet potato snacks as they walked around, and then they spot a bin of Akane's squeezy toys, and Kotaro admits that it's really cute and he would like
Potato-kun.
Potato-kun. As they shop, Akane spots some fortunes and asks when Kotaro's birthday is, and he says it was on August 7th, which basically just passed. And
2 days before mine.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And then Akane scolds him for not telling her. And
is it a surprise I'm actually a Leo?
Oh my god.
Yeah, get back to the show.
Kotaro tells her no one has ever really celebrated his birthday since it's during summer break, which is kind of sad. And then Akane like quickly says like, I need to go home. I need to call home. So she like goes off on her own for a little bit. And she's being sneaky. She goes and finds another store and she's like looking at like smartphone covers and she wants to buy him one, but she doesn't have any money on her. So like, or not a lot of money at least. She goes and she sees the little bin of the potato squeezies and they're only like 380 yen. So she buys one and gets it packaged up. So some time passes. It's nighttime now and they go to the shrine and there's these beautiful like multicolored wind chimes, just like the scenes, like their shrine is full of them. And they're gorgeous. You've seen them in the OP a lot of times up to this point, but I didn't know when they would come into play in the show, and this is where they do. They each have a slip of paper hanging from them, and they contain people's like written wishes. And it's very romantic, and Akane is kind of like considering when to give Kotaro the gift. And you can see that her feet are starting to hurt from the sandals that she's been walking around in. And so anyway, they stop by a stall and Kotaro uses the 1,000 yen bill to buy 2 relationship fortune tags for him and Akane. And they each like secretly write their own wishes. And like he asks her like what she's writing, but she says it's a secret. And then they pray at the shrine. And so finally, as they're walking around, Kotaro notices that Akane's foot is hurting and they can't just keep walking. She pulls out a Band-Aid, but she, like because the yukata is like wrapped so tight, she can't bend to reach her toes to put it on.
Yeah, for a minute, I was like, like, she's a track runner. Why is she not that flexible? But then after another second of thought, I was like, oh, it's the yukata she has on.
Exactly. You can't move incredibly easily in that, or at least bend well.
With that, yeah, especially with that broad banding in the middle.
Oh, yeah. So Kotaro is nice, and he takes the Band-Aid and gently puts it on for her and helps her.
For those foot fetish viewers out there, that was your scene.
Jesus. So Akane chooses this moment to give Kotaro his birthday gift, and Kotaro really likes it and realizes that she went to buy it earlier when she pretended she was making a phone call, and it's cute. And then I liked the scene just after this, before the big thing happens. They're walking along the bridge, and Akane is telling him how nervous she was as they were walking around, because she was trying to decide whether to give him the gift or if he would even like the gift at all. And I just can identify with that kind of like thinking, like just being nervous.
I thought about that too, but I was like, she just needs to say happy birthday and present him the gift, and which is what she eventually does. But that's where my brain went, was to go to, like, it immediately takes away the awkwardness. I went and got you a gift anyways. You didn't tell me about your birthday. They have to accept, so on, so on, so on.
Yeah. She's just so nervous that he won't like the gift for some reason. I don't know. It's just, it's cute. So Kotaro tells her, thank you, Akane-chan. And this is a throwback earlier in the episode when he was waiting for her in the library. There was a short moment before she got there where he was thinking to himself and saying out loud, Akane-chan, and then getting really embarrassed about like adding that honorific as if he's really close to her. So he gets confident and he says it this time, and he asks if it's okay to call her Akane-chan. She says yes, and she says, I'll call you Kotaro-kun. And they both kind of laugh at each other. And then they're sort of standing nervously in front of each other, looking at each other, and Akane starts looking down, and she's squeezing the potato-kun that she gave Kotaro as a present. And then Kotaro like puts her hand on hers as she's like squeezing it to calm her down, and then the music swells like crazy, and then there's a wide shot of this beautiful bridge they're standing on, and Kotaro leans in and kisses her. Yay! And I also liked the shot right after that where Akane's like thumbs are no longer moving. She's not squeezing the toy as she's kissing him, because she's not nervous anymore. She feels like really comfortable with him. And that gets reinforced because the next day at school, Akane's friends ask her again, like, what do you like about Kotaro? And she says, he keeps to himself, but I feel safe when I'm with him. It's like, so she feels safe and she feels comfortable, and she doesn't need her like little squeezy to feel okay. He's her little squeezy, Leo. He's her little squeezy now.
I've already gone over my limit of eye rolling for today, so please stop.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, and yeah, in the closing shot of the episode, we see that the couple's wishes from the festival are hanging next to each other from wind chimes, and they both say, I wish for us to be together forever.
And then, yep, that was when I went over my quota by 3.
But then we get to your favorite part of the episode, which is the shorts.
Yay! These are awesome.
Quickly.
Except for how the teacher is in love with her middle school student, which
the way she reacts is kind of funny, though. So the first one
kind of is, but just a part of me is like, oh my god, this is so wrong. Because like, if you were to put a dude here, it just for whatever reason is
that's
like
a good point. Yeah,
50 times worse. 50 times worse. It's so much worse. I don't know why I'm slightly acceptive of it since it's a female, but
yeah, it's kind of messed up. As long as she doesn't act on it, though, I think it's sort of okay. But yeah, so the shorts. The first one is Aira and Kaneko 2. Their boyfriend and girlfriend, they're looking at the idol, like an idol posing in a magazine, and the guy's like looking at the idol who has her arms like posed under her breasts to make them look really big, and she's like
push them up and whatnot.
Yeah, he says to his girlfriend, like, I want you to do that pose, and she's like, they're in public, but she's like, okay, I'll do it. And he tells her, like, Baka, you thought I was actually serious. And she gets really
I won't say
annoyed.
her boobs got super big when she did it, though.
They did. It's a magical pose. It's why that boob ribbon show, Dungeon no Dia no Motomeru, is so popular.
Well, that's why the Wonder Bra is called the Wonder Bra, because it holds your boobs up really big, and when you take it off, the guy wonders where your boobs went.
So it's funny because like she gets annoyed at him, but he immediately says, you look cute enough without doing that. And then in the next shot, she's like overheating with embarrassment. It's really cute.
I was like, oh, smooth, dude. I'd fist bump you if I could.
He's pretty smooth. So the next short is Ryoka Sensei and Roman 5. So this is the first of the 2 teacher shorts. So Ryoko is at home on summer break, and she's like drinking some champagne from a glass, and she has a picture of Roman as her phone's home screen, and she says, "Summer break is so long," as she's like longing to get back to Roman. It's really funny. I mean, it's also really uncomfortable. Like if it was a male teacher and he was like longing to get back to his female student, yes, I would agree that like society deems that less like acceptable, but this is probably equally unacceptable.
It should be equally unacceptable. For whatever reason, I do see it, if it was a male teacher, as way worse.
Yeah. So Sakura and Roman is the next short, and Roman is noticing that Sakura changed her lip gloss because he's kind of effeminate. And at first she pretends like, oh, he's so gross. Why did he notice my lip gloss? But then with all of her fantasies, she realizes at the end that she kind of likes it.
And I find it weird that a girl would find that gross.
Yeah, I don't know. She's just a weirdo. She's always having crazy fantasies.
From my experience, most girls would be like, oh, thanks for noticing, at the least.
Yeah. I think her sense was like, oh, he noticed because he's gay. I think that's what she was kind of hinting at.
Dude, that dude feels gay to me.
Yeah,
really
he's written as a very effeminate character. I don't know if he's gay, but...
And I'm not saying it as a bad thing. I mean, like, he just comes across as a gay... I have a couple gay friends. I know a couple gay people. And that's just how he comes across to me. So,
yeah. Next short is Aoi Takizawa, a girl. This is the girl who's like the tomboy of the track team. And she's like yelling at the guys on the track team to do their stretching properly. And they're just like all like, yes, please yell at us more. Stretch me more. And like the girls are just looking on saying like, wow, she's really popular.
Well, it was the pushing because she was touching them on their stretch. So the other guys wanted her to touch them also.
I also just think some guys like being yelled at by a really cute girl. So,
maybe.
Second, Ryoka Sensei Roman short. So Ryoka Sensei has now moved on to drinking champagne straight from the bottle, as opposed to from the glass.
I noticed that too. I was like, that's awesome. That's a nice little detail they threw in there.
She's reading like a marriage magazine, and the camera focuses on Roman's picture on her phone, and she says, "Graduation's so far off now." So yeah, she's thinking now about like when Roman graduates, which now that's kind of creepy. Because she's like, oh, once he graduates, like he'll be a man, and like there won't be any reason for me not to go after him. Mm-hmm. So, and then the last short is Kotoro's parents, and Kotoro's mom's vacuuming his room and finds like some of his half-finished light novels, and she goes down to the kitchen. She tells the dad like, I found his light novels, and he tells her, I can't condone you reading those, even as his mom. There has to be some rules against that. And he sips like a little bit of his tea, and it cuts immediately to the dad in Kotoro's room reading the light novels, like just immediately. And then he thinks to himself, oh, Kotoro, you've got a good grasp on how women think. And then we see in another room, the mom sneakily got one of the light novels, and she's reading it too. And she says to herself, Kotoro, you really don't understand how women think.
That was really funny.
I liked that a lot too. Man, the shorts are so good at the end of these episodes. I love them.
They are. I don't know. It's all the little things in them that just make them so good. And I know I said this last episode, but I wish they would have just done shorts other than this show. This is probably a good show. This is not my genre, but these shorts are so amazing to me. They should have just done shorts instead. And I would have been like fangasming. I would have probably told Bcom I'm including these in every episode because they're that good.
All right, let's move on since we're getting a little long on this podcast. So Fridays, we've got Rage of Bahamut and Virgin Soul. Episode 9 is Same Old, Same Old. So it turns out Nina is a great slave laborer.
Not surprising.
So the episode starts out with her, they're in prison, right? And she's writing a letter to her mom that she's like reading to the audience about how much she's enjoying life in prison. And like Jeanne d'Arc's like looking on, and she's getting like whipped as she like tries to help some other helpless woman in this prison. And like Nina's like running around happy as a clam, like carrying like huge piles of boulders and stuff. The only thing she doesn't like is that they don't give you seconds for food, and we know how big her appetite is, and that she never gets to see the sun. That's basically she's otherwise pretty happy. She's been counting the days by drawing them on the wall of her cell, and she realizes it's her birthday, and she starts singing happy birthday to herself. And she's turned 17 now. So after that weird beginning to the show, Jeanne d'Arc doesn't know what to make of her at that point. Favreau and Kaiser have time to talk while they're picking away at the walls of the mine. And Kaiser tells him that he's in here because he got wrapped up in trying to stop Azazel's revolt. And a girl named Nina has been pulled into it too. And Favreau vaguely remembers, there's some little shrimpy girl named Nina I used to know. And we enter a flashback.
I like the flashback.
Yeah. He's in Nina's Dragon Town, and he's at the bar, the inn, and he's drinking and carousing around with these dragon folk women, and he's using his typical lines from season 1 about I've slain villains who would make you blush and blah blah blah. I've seen lots of beautiful women.
A really good reintroduction to Favreau. Because they're just reinforcing, this is the old Favreau that you remember from season 1. And that was kind of my whole point. I felt was the whole point to this flashback.
Yeah, and this is all taking place after he saved the world from Bahamut, which is confirmed later in the episode. So one of the women casually hits him and sends him flying across the bar. And we also see that Nina is on top of the roof of the bar, and she's watching this happen. She's watching Favreau and listening to the conversation. Oh,
I want to say when Favreau gets knocked halfway across the room, he after a second sits up and he's like, "Why are you so strong?"
Yeah, it's because they're dragon folk. They're super strong. So that night, as Favreau sleeps, Nina enters his room and tries to tap his afro to wake him up at first, but he's in a heavy drunken slumber. So then she jumps on the bed and straddles him and shakes him until he wakes up. And then she's standing on his bed, and he looks at her. He's like, "What the hell do you want?" And she tells him, "I want you to make me your apprentice." And so the next morning, Favreau tells her that she can't really earn anything as a bounty hunter if her goal is money, and since there are fewer outlaws now, there's not a lot of work. And that she needs to be really quick and really strong to be a bounty hunter.
As cliche as this whole thing is,
yeah,
I really liked it still.
Oh, yeah. It's a short montage. Basically, Nina's going to prove to him how strong she is. So, she goes into a forest and finds a tree and just, knocks it over by, punching it, basically.
And we're, talking, the California, what are those trees called?
Redwood trees or something.
Redwood trees, yeah, over.
Favreau's just looking on in horror, basically. And then she goes up to this huge boulder and karate chops it, and it breaks immediately in two. And she's like, "Take me as your apprentice." And then she realizes that he's disappeared, and he's running away at top speed. "I don't have time to deal with this freak show. I need to get out of here." But of course, Nina, we know about her super speed, so she catches up to him. And she realizes, she says "Hey, I'm fast, I'm quick, I'm strong, take me as your apprentice." So Favreau looks her up and down, and then finally gives in, saying, "Okay, I'll take you on as long as I'm in this village, but I'm going to need a room and 3 meals a day." And she's like, "Yay!" So we get this brief training montage of Favreau trying to train Nina to be a bounty hunter, shooting a crossbow at fish jumping out of the water, throwing smoke bombs, using a whip, but she's not really doing well at any of these things. She's pretty bad at it.
She's not doing well at none of these things.
Yeah, and none of these things suit her abilities. So we move on, and Favreau's relaxing in the hot springs of the town, and we see Nina dive from a cliff into the hot springs waters, making a huge splash that gets Favreau all wet. And she bursts up from the water buck naked, and I think she didn't think anybody was going to be there. That's the point. Yeah. And then Favreau says, "You're a bold one." And of course she turns, looks at him, takes one look at his face, and says, and freaks out and transforms into a red dragon, of course. So Favreau runs away.
Because he looks so much better with his afro flattened.
Exactly. So the whole point is that he asks her, she chases him for a little bit and then runs out of energy, passes it out again. And then he asks her the next day, "Hey, why didn't you transform all the time if I'm attractive?" And she said, "Oh, it must be because your afro was gone from being wet." And he's like, "Oh, is this afro not cool?"
And I wrote down, no, the afro is not cool. That was actually one of my biggest things about season 1 was I did not like his character design because of the afro. I don't know why it was so off-putting to me. I don't have things against afros. I just... he's a ginger afro, and that just doesn't make any sense to me, I think.
There were a lot of ginger afros around in the 1970s in the U.S.
Now that you say that, but I don't know. I guess because I don't see him, I don't know.
It's not something you commonly see right now. Yeah, it's very uncommon to see that. So, I don't know. It makes him stand out a little bit. So Favreau tells Nina that this is her final lesson, like already. She even says already. And it's to quickly forget about the bounty you've caught, because if you forget about them, then they won't harbor resentments either. And she's like, oh, that's so deep, Favreau. And of course it makes no sense.
Yeah, typical Favreau.
And then he gives her the bracelet to mark her becoming a bounty hunter and walks away. And he tells her, if you ever need work, go to Anatae and find the duck and the drunk in the carriage. Of course, Bacchus and Hamza.
That's awesome.
And finally, he turns around and he says, hey, which way does the wind blow? And she's kind of confused and she puts her finger up in the air. But of course, he's quoting his dad when he says, it blows to tomorrow. And she thinks that's really cool. So anyway, Kaiser's been listening to this whole story. We're back in present time and they're in the mines. And he only now realizes that Nina was the red dragon from this story. And then Kaiser asks Favreau, how did you get put in here? And Favreau claims he got surrounded by 100 royal soldiers and gave them a good fight. But then we immediately see he actually just got really drunk in the next town, and 2 of Charios's royal guards dragged him off sleeping in the night. And then apparently, so they when they captured him, they cut off his hair. They like subjected him to like horrifying things, like putting him in like the gladiator arena and stuff. So Charios really had it out for Favreau.
Which they didn't say why.
Why specifically. I guess it's because Charios knows that Favreau is the hero who actually defeated Bahamut. I guess.
That's totally assuming, but we'll find out.
So meanwhile, Alisand and Bartholomew, the Orleans Knights guys, are being attended to by some demon girls. And Alisand is moping about like not being able to find Jeanne d'Arc because like
I want to go to this demon brothel. Yeah, looked so awesome.
These demon girls are really cute. And then Cerberus shows up.
No, they're gorgeous.
Well, yeah, they're really cute. Ooh. But the weird thing that happens is Cerberus shows up. And like I was
guest appearance.
I was so sure that she had died. Like in episode 12, because like there's this line when she's in the fight with Bahamut saying like, I don't want to die, and she gets like blown away in her ship, but I guess she just gets blown out of the fight. She didn't actually die. I thought she was dead.
It's been too long since I've seen it.
Yeah, I went back and watched that
remember
episode.
her dying.
That's what I was doing just before we recorded. I was watching that and trying to figure out like what I missed, because for some reason I'm sure she was dead, but apparently she's not. I hate her character. She's by far like the worst character in season 1 to me.
Do you hate her little puppet talking hands?
Yes, I hate like everything about her. So
she's too sexy to me to hate. So
I'm not super excited that she's back, but it was funny that she's running like this demon brothel. And then she's like, she tells Alisand like, hey, you should be the new captain of the Orleans Knights now. And he's like, I should be the captain. And then like all the demon girls start chanting like, you're the captain. It was funny. So anyway, back at the prison, back to the meat of the episode, John offers Nina her extra bread, saying that she has a small appetite and like she can share. She insists. And John asks why Nina's in prison. She explains what happened, and she mentions that she got thrown in here with a captain with funny hair, and then John recognizes that as Kaiser. And then later they're continuing this conversation back in their cells, and Nina mentions that she knows this girl named Muguro who has like this weird power with her left eye that glows. And then hearing that, John like jumps to attention and clearly recognizing that she might be talking about Muguro, her child. And John asks, was the child not a boy? And Nina's like, wait, it was a girl, right? It was a girl.
So this is finally confirmation. Muguro is a boy.
Thank God. So we don't have to keep guessing.
Yeah, it was just this ongoing thing of like, well, is it a girl? Is it a boy? I mean, we know Nina's airheaded, but
yeah,
I guess
my assumption was it was a boy, but I had to like navigate that minefield
a really
every
feminine
time we talked about Muguro.
boy, like Albus from Grimoire.
Yeah. So when we get a scene in heaven where Muguro, who's known as L there, is just sitting, not responding to the angels, and Sophiel is talking with Gabriel, and they're discussing whether to awake L into godhood, since he won't open up with them. And Gabriel said there's no time, we just have to do it. And then we see a brief scene of Jean laying in bed and thinking back to her son, how he used to be. And so we see a young Muguro, or L, who's got blonde hair and like a smile on his face and the two different colored eyes.
Which was weird. Why does he have blonde hair?
So I thought of a bunch of reasons for that. Like maybe he dyed it to stay in hiding, or maybe he wears a wig, or maybe he dyed it because of like if he knew about if people would recognize that angels have blonde hair. I have no idea. There's a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah, but the show did nothing to suggest any of that. It was just weird. It's like blonde hair, but I'm like, now he has black hair. What is going on?
Yeah, I'm sure like there could be reasons why that happened. Or there's some, I don't know, he was pretty old as a little kid. That wasn't like a baby we're looking at. I mean, there's some babies whose hair changes from blonde to like black. Like that definitely is a thing that happens.
Whoa, from blonde to jet black?
Yeah, I know there's babies whose hair changes like drastically. I don't know about blonde to black, but I think that's happened. I think that's a thing.
I don't think about that much. I'm a blonde. My hair has definitely darkened since I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, my hair was like yellow blonde, but now it's more of a brown. But if I get out in the sun a whole lot, my hair lightens up a whole shitload.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, changing to
I've
black
never known cases of
drastic.
Going from like one end of the spectrum to the other. So that was just that like in the moment that scene flashed, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like it stuck out to me that much. I don't know.
Yeah, it says like, so I'm reading like a science article. Like typically children with dark hair will keep their dark hair into adulthood, but some children with light hair, including towhead blondes, which is something I've never heard of before, strawberry blondes, dishwater blondes, I've never heard, and redheads, see their hair go dark brown by their 10th birthday. So dark brown, but maybe not black. So,
yeah, I've never seen a full transition.
Okay.
Like that. So
Sophiel then approaches L, Muguro, and tells him that she was once saved by his mother and his power, Muguro's power. And I think she might be referring to Michael's power, like not actually Muguro's power, but I'm not sure about that. And she says she'll do everything in her power to save his mother. So she's trying to like get in his good graces and hoping that he'll remember that. Back in the mines, John whispers to Nina that she needs to leave the prison so she can meet Muguro for himself. She needs to find out something. And she asks Nina for her help. And Nina like sees the look in her eyes and then agrees. And of course, Nina, being an idiot, then yells out, "Yeah, let's get out of here."
She got caught up in the moment, but I don't understand why the other women started clapping.
I think the reason they started clapping was because like, hey, there's still one person in here who hasn't lost all hope. I think that was what it was. Like they were happy to see like somebody still has courage and still can speak up and speak out. And so, yeah, like all the women in the mine start clapping like when they hear Nina say that. It's kind of funny.
I'd also like to say like the how all the other women in the mines are designed to me looks like they're innocent.
Yeah, they don't look like criminals necessarily. I mean, I don't know what a criminal looks like, but like, yeah, they don't look evil, basically.
No, they all look like good, well-doing women that were just imprisoned because Cheerios is actually
a douche,
an asshole.
So after the end credits, there's a brief shot. Rita is flying above the prison in a carriage carried by a hippogriff. And she takes out an umbrella, and I'll leave this one with Leo.
But then she jumps off and flies down into the prison, and all I have to say is, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
There you go.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts about that episode? I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, it's interesting to see this huge change in Favreau. I'm not sure that I love Like I remember saying back in the early part of the season, like, I can't wait for how Favreau is reintroduced to the show. I kind of feel like his reintroduction has kind of landed pretty flat with me.
Really?
Yeah, because he killed Bahamut. Like, that was fucking amazing. Like, the things he did at the end of last season were crazy.
It was a huge team effort, and it was at the sacrifice of, I've forgotten her name.
Amira. Which I still want to know, are we going to find out more about what happened to Amira? Is Amira actually dead, or did she somehow reincarnate or something before that happened? Or I don't know. Like, I guess
they kind of left that to your own judgment.
Yeah, it's all up to interpretation.
To possibly rewrite it later how they wanted to say what happened to her.
I mean, and the other thing is, I want to know how Favreau feels about what happened. Because we got no scenes with Favreau after that happened.
Yeah, they were in love with each other, right?
Exactly. So is he not, like, cut up about that? Like, I want to know. I really want to know. Maybe he just doesn't care, but that would hurt his character for me if he didn't care. So I expect to see more about that.
Yeah, it's odd they haven't mentioned such a huge main character and like the entire plot point to the first season so far. So maybe we'll get more on that.
Yeah,
Is that all you got?
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, let's move on to Saturday's Recreators. Episode 8. I choose this way of life. And I say it that way because for whatever reason, capital letters is all in chose. I chose this way of life. So, man, this is the ridiculously talk heavy episode.
Yes.
So what did we learn? Military princess is named Altair, and she's actually based off of another character, and so far has not proved important at this point whatsoever. Like they literally spent 3 minutes talking about that, and I have no idea why it's important to the story.
I mean, it may eventually become part of the key to beating her, like understanding the character she's based off of. Like, her reality is based off of that of somebody else, but just like adapted in such a way that she's become her own famous character.
Right, but she's so completely, and they also state she's so completely different that she almost doesn't even relate at this point. It's like just a character model design.
Yeah.
So this episode actually killed this show for me, but I'll get more into that later.
Okay.
So their only problem now is trying to find out who the author is because she used the pen name. So that's really hard to figure out. And they've also found 2 more authors whose works have appeared in the real world. And like Miro Kuji, the sword guy, like attacks his own creator because he's mad because he created a world where, you know, people died, and then like due to misunderstandings, people are now attacking him. And I've already talked about how like, the creators, they made these worlds for entertainment. They didn't realize it would become real things. So you can't fault them for it, but whatever.
There's a funny moment where like one of the other writers yells out, "Just don't hurt his head or his right hand." It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was like Silesia's writer or something like that.
Yes.
So anyways, God, I hate this episode so much. Meteora informs Souta about the new information they have gathered, but says they still need to figure out who the author is. Souta still doesn't fucking tell her he knows who the author is. This information is world-ending important. For effect, let me say this again. World-ending important. I can't think of any better reason to relay this information. There is nothing else that should convince you to tell them what you know. You will die. Everybody will die. It doesn't matter where your importance lies, unless he doesn't freaking care about his life or anybody else's. Which is not what I'm gathering from this. This is so important. It's stupid important. And it's just killing me for Sota's character because he's supposed to be a main character. And I'm just staring at the show, watching it, and I'm just going, I don't get this writing. This is so bad. what Souta does and how he reacts to everything makes no sense to me.
So I'll just say, before I get into like a counterpoint, I'll say I was really annoyed with this little conversation between Souta and Meteora to the point where I had to quote it. And I want to read to you what he says. He says, for example, what if there was a person and that person had a really important friend, and that friend had a lot of talent, but the harder that person tried, the more he felt frustrated and felt that the world was unfair. And that person started to feel like that towards his friend. And then that person's feelings started to change. And that person was cold to his friend. But I never meant it. In the end, what should that person have done? And I was just like, dude, just fucking drop it and just tell her like that you are the person. It's so obvious. Like you care about the author who you think you're acting cold to her caused her to commit suicide. It's very clear.
They're so obviously beating around the bush. It's so apparent.
So like Souta seems to be paralyzed into inaction because of his guilt that he feels about causing this girl to kill herself, in his opinion. Like
right. So as I continue to write, so I'm gathering from the conversation, which this is basically everything you just said. Souta got jealous of her and treated her badly, which eventually caused her to commit suicide. He may have been her old friend. And yes, you can feel bad about this, but let me remind you, you are withholding world-ending class level information. His actions make absolutely no sense. And just honestly, just totally ruined this entire show for me. This episode I felt was so bad. If I wasn't reviewing it for this podcast, I would have personally dropped it and maybe later on checked up on somebody's review to see just out of curiosity what happened and how much worse it got.
Yeah.
But anyways, then they had the cool scene of like Alice in her world, and I want them to make an anime about her world because her memory was super cool.
It was really cool.
It was really gruesome. It looked super important. What she did made sense, which is really important. That's all I gotta say. It kind of made me think of Berserk, how like gruesome it is, but like the CGI is so terrible. Like I just can't watch that show. But anyways, Alice and Mamika has a conversation that could be completely cut from the show and we would miss nothing.
Except
the only thing I got from it was some lesbian undertone stuff.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of shipping between Mamika and Alice. Like she's basically telling her that like no matter what happens now, I'll still be your friend because Mamika knows she's going to go confront the military princess right now. So that's what she's telling Alice. Like, don't worry about me. Like, I'm your friend. So that's what that scene is for, but it was kind of unnecessary. Yeah,
like I said, you could have probably cut out 10%, 90% of that scene. Mm-hmm. And it's basically the transition scene to let you know that Mamika is going to go confront Altair. And that's like a lot of it is just, it's unnecessary unless you're really concerned about the relationship between the two.
So this next scene is really important. So once you get into that, the Magane scene.
So Magane is dressed as a maid, and I almost at first wrote down it as fan service, but
yeah, not really though.
Not really. But she ends up pulling Souta aside to tell him even she was amazed by all the information she gave Mamika and Meteora because she spied on both of these conversations. And it finally confirms because she totally guesses that he knows that the author is dead.
And he starts like hyperventilating. Like so this is why he's not telling people things. It's like he has like a physical reaction to this information that is like, this is like his deepest, darkest fear of people finding this thing out.
Yeah. And like, I get that. But this is so stinking important. You would have to have like a way worse mental disability / condition to not say this.
Yeah.
But then this, I was already wanting to drop this, and this next part just completely pretty much sealed it for me. She ends up giving him her number, and I'm just going to assume by the way things work that he's going to withhold this information also. She's a murderer in this world, one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
What? Oh, this show was just like really making me angry because I'm like, none of this makes sense. This guy's an idiot. I don't want to watch any more of this. This writing is just horrible to me. Just, can I please just go watch Tsuki got Kirei instead?
Yes, please do. It's a good
God,
show. I'm so glad.
At least I'll just be bored instead of angry.
Before we get to the last scene, there was one thing I wanted to say. Is just the worst thing that can happen now is if like the government finds out now that he knows who the author was after the fact, and he doesn't tell them. Then he's going to be even more trouble because they will know that he's been withholding this world-ending class information, like you keep saying, and then he'll be in more trouble because like the government will say like, why have you been withholding this information?
Oh yeah, he'll be super SOL because from their point of view, it looks like he might have actually been working with the bad guys.
Yeah, so I mean, his only option now is to tell them. Like he needs to just tell them.
Yeah,
now.
In his earlier conversation with Meteora, I saw so many points where he could have told her what he knew, and he didn't.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Meteora has figured out this stuff because she's pretty smart. Like, I'm not sure if we're supposed to infer that maybe she understands what he's saying. I don't think he. And
does. I want to say she's like super forgiving. So even like I felt like she's super forgiving. So that like even if he admitted, I'm sorry, I held this back for this amount of time, but now I'm telling you that she in the end would be like, it's okay, I still forgive you. I understand you had. This was very personal to you and you had your reasons why.
Yeah, but he's got to come out and say it like within the next episode or two, like has to happen. Otherwise, this is stupid.
Yeah. It won't.
So last scene, why don't you go through it? Because I actually really liked this.
Yeah, so we get Mamika who actually confronts Altair about whether she has been lying to them or not. And it's a lot of this episode is so talk heavy. Lots of dialogue. And, it's just basically about is they confirm that Altair is trying to end the world out of revenge because that's how her creator wrote it. And her creator was basically her only ally. And because the world rejected her, now she wants to kill the world. And then it's 10 seconds. No. Probably about 20 to 30 seconds. But like she's talking, Mamika and Altair are still talking, and like suddenly like a sword comes through Mamika's chest. There's a couple swords go through her chest, a couple swords go through her stomach, and whatnot. And like Altair finally snaps at her, which is kind of interesting because she's never lost her composure at this point, and like kind of yells at her, and she's like, ah, and summons like 100 swords or something like that. And then like Mamika then like fucking nukes the place, and that's the end scene.
Yeah,
and I was just kind of like, whoa,
that was pretty intense. Like the magical splash flare, like it goes off like a nuclear bomb. So that's a nice
it cuts back to a screenshot of like the old school like arena or building they're in, literally showing like a nuking purple almost mushroom cloud.
Yeah,
like it looks like when we come back to the next episode, that place is going to be leveled.
It's going to be like a crater. Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, we both had issues with Souta that episode. Like, and I agree that like if he does not disclose this information within like the next episode, it's just going to be nagging at me the entire time. Like, why are we waiting for this? Like, it doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah. So my only regret as doing no drops is probably not dropping recreators and probably substituting it with probably Kato.
Yeah. Well, I still like recreators on the basis of the interesting characters and tropes that they're parodying and just like the beautiful animation. But yeah, Souta has always been holding the show back the whole time.
And I agree. I like a lot of the other aspects, but it's like... Man, I'm almost going to quote Kazuo from a podcast, but it's basically a dish or food of sorts. Let's just go with a hot dog, and you got. I really like chili dogs. I'm pretty like things fairly plain, so I got my chili sauce and like some cheese on it. But then you sprinkled some dried dog shit on it, and it totally ruins the whole sandwich. And that's what Souta has done to me for this show.
Yeah, this show could be so much more fun and could play so much more with the different tropes if it wasn't for just Souta being a little bitch the entire time.
Being understandable. You don't make any sense to me, dude. Come on.
Let's move on to something else that doesn't make any sense to me, which is My Hero Academia Season
You really
2.
think so?
So episode 22, which is called Bakugo versus Uraraka. So coming into this episode last week, I said it'd be so cool if Ochako like won this match. Like, I'd really respect the show a lot if like Ochako like was really awesome, but like I didn't expect it to happen. But I was like, I want to see like some good stuff, and so
I like the way the battle did turn out.
Okay, in the end, I think I did too, but
it makes sense.
Everything around the battle that I had a problem with. So, the last match of the first round of 16, Katsuki starts off by calling Ochako round face because he doesn't remember her name still.
He doesn't remember anybody's name.
Yeah. And tells her to forfeit if she doesn't want to get hurt. And then Ida asks Deku what his strategy was for Ochako that she didn't want to hear before the fight. And it basically boiled down to Ochako needing to launch a quick first strike and touch Katsuki with her floating quirk so she could get the upper hand as quickly as possible. And luckily, Ochako has basically the same idea to start off. Katsuki starts off the fight as he usually does, with like a big swing with his right arm. And it was enough to stop Ochako in her tracks before she could reach him. But it also made a lot of smoke come up off the ground. And Ochako uses this to her advantage. She floats her track jacket. She takes it off and sends it at Katsuki as a decoy. And then she moves around behind him and gets really close to touching him before he realizes what's happening and swats her away with like his blast. That was a really cool move by Ochako.
Yeah, but they also note that like his reflexes are just so far above hers that like it's just reinforcing that like he's going to win this match because he's just so much more superior of a fighter than she is.
Yeah, basically. And she doesn't have an amazing plan, though she does have a second step. But before we get to that, Class 1A starts being incredibly sexist. Because first we have Suyu, the frog girl, saying, Bakugo really isn't holding back, even though Ochako is a girl. And it's like, yeah, you're studying to be heroes. There's male and female heroes. Do they not fight each other? Like, do you not fight female villains? Do you hold back when you fight female villains? When you're a male villain? Like, what is the point of her saying that? And then we have Mineta saying, don't tell me Bakugo's interests run in that direction. Basically saying that since that Katsuki is like not treating her as a girl, instead treating her as an equal fighter, that he's like gay or something.
Yeah, it's weird that they do all this, but then in the end, you realize he was holding back, actually, probably.
Yes. So, anyway, Ochako continues to launch repeated attacks at Katsuki, but he just swats her away every time with explosions. And then the crowd starts getting antsy, saying, like, telling the referee, yelling at him, like, because they can't stand to see a girl getting hurt, I guess. Like, why won't you stop the fight? Like, and then they start yelling and booing Katsuki because they assume he's toying with Ochako by not just sending her out of bounds. They're like, if you're so much more powerful for her, then just end the fight. But then this is when Aizawa, the announcer, silences the crowd, saying that if they think Katsuki's just playing around, then they should quit their careers as pro heroes and not watch the rest of the match because they have no idea what they're talking about. And you find out that all along, while Ochako has been making Katsuki direct his attacks towards the concrete floor, and it's been breaking off a bunch of debris, and she's been relentlessly attacking him so quickly that he hasn't had a chance to notice that up above them in the sky, she's been gathering a floating huge pile of like concrete debris, and she brings it raining down like a meteor shower and charges at Katsuki, thinking that there will be just enough time to get to him with this distraction. But then Katsuki like grabs his left hand with his right hand and fires off this enormous explosion that has enough force to blow away Ochako and all of the debris.
With ease.
Easily, yeah, basically. Well, not with ease, because he's kind of like trembling afterwards, I think. I think that took almost everything he had. But then he also assumes that since she was friends with Deku, she'd be up to something sneaky. He says that to her. And she's on her knees, like, and she's kind of despondent about her attack being deflected because she threw like everything she had at him. But she thinks to herself that if it were Deku, he'd keep going. So she turns and starts to run towards Katsuki, but her body is taken so much that she just is completely out of energy, and she falls on the ground like in a heap. And then she starts to like try to crawl her way towards him, but eventually stops, and Midnight comes in and rules her out of commission. So Deku runs into Katsuki as he heads to the waiting room before the next match, and Katsuki instantly assumes that Ochako wasn't capable of coming up with the plan she used on her own, either because he doesn't respect Ochako or because it's again like thinking like, oh, it's a girl, how could she come up with a plan? And then Deku like tells him no. If you felt that plan was annoying, it was because you were being led around by the nose by Ochako, like kind of jibing at Katsuki again. So then when Katsuki goes back to sit with the class, one of them says, "Man, I can't believe you were able to aim such a huge blast at a frail girl." And at this point, I was like, why the fuck are Ochako's own classmates referring to her as a frail girl? Like, what is this shitty attitude that Class 1A has towards the girls in their class? Like, it was really starting to lose me. Like, this entire show was starting to lose me. Before that, the kid who was talking about this says, like, I couldn't hold back against Vine Girl because, like, she was a girl. Or like, he claimed, sorry, I'm getting mixed up. He claims, I held back against Vine Girl because she was a girl, and that's why I lost. He's making excuses for himself. And it seems that Katsugiri disagrees, though, says like, what part of her was frail? And then my friend Andrew, who I watched the My Hero Academia with each week, was pointing out to me that after the fight, Bakugo starts referring to Uraraka by her actual name. So he actually remembers Ochako's name now because like she impressed him that much. And yeah, he's like the only one in this episode to actually treat the girls as an equal and like view them as an equal. And I don't know if it's because Bakugo's just got a one-track mind, or he only thinks about people's like power levels, and that's the only way he views people. But man,
yeah, totally.
So Deku finds Ochako in the waiting room after she got treated by Recovery Girl, and she seems to be in like super high spirits, and Deku's kind of surprised, and he's like wondering if she's okay. And their conversation is interrupted because the two guys that have the hardening perk have like an arm wrestle off to determine who gets to the next round. And Kirishima beats Tetsutetsu because Tetsutetsu didn't eat enough iron and his metal had fatigue. So he moves on, Kirishima.
So it makes me wonder what the other guy has to eat to make his keep himself strong.
Probably just Wheaties, gotta eat your Wheaties. So Deku leaves since it's his turn next, and Ochako then calls her dad, and she kind of reveals her true feelings here. She thinks she was totally defeated and she wasn't amazing at all, but her dad like kind of reassures her that you're amazing, like what you did was amazing, and she starts tearing up. Deku gets stopped in the hall by Endeavor on the way to the match, and Endeavor tells him that he was impressed by his quirk, which is comparable to All Might's, and that if he puts up a good fight, it'll be an instructive stepping stone for his son Todoroki. So Deku tells him that I'm not All Might, and Todoroki isn't you either.
Good scene.
Yeah. And the rest
really
of the
good
episode is just people getting hyped up for the Deku-Todoroki matchup. So, yeah, I had a lot of problems with the way that her classmates viewed her in this episode. Like, calling her frail and just, like, assuming that she shouldn't be able to fight on equal footing with the boys. Like, I thought it was all really shitty. And
yeah, they didn't have to do that. They totally could have gone the route of, what's his name, Bakugo?
Yeah.
Bakugo it's obvious he's way stronger, and it's not because he's male and she's female. It's because he's basically of his quirk and his fighting abilities. It's clear as day. I mean, if they would have done that, it's fine, but no, they really did focus on her being a female, and that was why she was weaker.
I also thought it would have been like slightly more okay with me if it was just like random people in the crowd that were saying all these things, but it was like her own classmates from Class 1A. And I don't know, that's true. Some people reminded me that like, well, she hasn't really done too much in Class 1A to like prove that she's strong. So you can see that there probably would be people that would underestimate her.
Yeah, but they all completely put it off as because she's female.
Yeah. So anyway, I will just say, look forward to next week's episode. I watched it today. We record on Saturdays. I won't say anything. Episode 23 is amazing, but we can move on.
All right. Alrighty. Anyways. Attack on Titan Season 2. I unfortunately did not have any jokes to write for this episode because it was pure talk heavy. Oh, Jesus. I really dislike doing reviews of episodes that are talk heavy because it's really hard not to just write down everything word for word.
It's unfortunate because 2 episodes, Attack on Titan had maybe the best episode of its entire run. And these past 2 episodes have just been so boring. Yeah.
Yeah. In a bunch of this episode, there was so much that I just had to cut out because it was a rehash of stuff we've already been told, if not once, possibly twice at this point.
For sure. Yeah.
So let's get to a lot of that. I just put in the important parts mostly. So Zoe, you really love her, don't you?
She's really cute. She's crawling on the ground because she can't walk. But she's we need to get to Connie's village.
Yeah, she's just so weak. She can't walk, and she's crawling, and she wants to go back to Connie's village and investigate that Titan that couldn't walk either, ironically. And obviously she can't go on herself. Even if they strapped her to a horse, she wouldn't even make it. So one of her soldiers decides to go ahead instead. And then she's like, what? He's like, why don't you just collapse here instead? And she collapses in kind of a dramatic manner.
As soon as somebody tells her she
nowhere
can
near
pass
as
out,
dramatic as eating the ration bars from the last episode.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm still not over. That was just some of the most... I haven't seen starving puppies eat that aggressively before. Oh, man. And also this episode just reinforces how much I dislike Aaron's character.
Mm-hmm.
So Aaron is super bummed. He lost the fight and starts to try and transform, but Ymir, stops him really quickly, pointing out that obviously they're deep in Titan territory and will most likely die if you transform, and wasn't being protected by being up in the trees. Also, one of the Titans below appears to be an abnormal because it's literally just laying on its back and just has an arm behind the head, but its eyes are totally locked on them.
Looking up hey, what's up, baby? It's
yeah, almost.
Funniest look.
There's also a second really large Titan who's standing behind a tree and peeking around it.
The Titans are so ridiculous.
Yeah, and not to mention Reiner and Bertolt are right there. You're not going to take both of them at once. Give me a break. But Ymir asked Reiner why he just didn't run all the way to his hometown as the armored Titan. Instead of stopping here, he just simply says, use your imagination. Ymir goes on to also say, why do they think the Titans can't move at night here when they clearly could back at the castle? Reiner says these ones can't, and you should know why.
He indicates that Ymir should know about this better than anybody, kind of thing.
Yeah, but did they say anything else about that? Why she should?
Nope.
Okay, I was making sure it wasn't me. I also would this is the 9-minute mark in this episode. So literally, I cut out that much stuff because it was all stuff we already know. So it's been really slow so far. Second half picks up a little bit. So we still see the scouts are still on their way to the forest where Eren is. Hans has to tell Mikasa to calm down a bit because she's about to break formation because she's in such a haste to get to Eren, which is totally Mikasa. Mm-hmm. Which is one of the aspects I really hate about Mikasa is how dedicated she is to Eren. They did not sell me on that at all during season 1.
I was somewhat sold on it. It's less about who Eren is and more about what he did for her and who she was to her when she was in a time of crisis and trauma.
I just feel this is borderline obsessive breaking into a mental disability type area.
Are you saying you don't want an obsessive Titan waifu like everybody else? They're trying to sell to you Mikasa as being the girl who will be obsessed over you.
But Mikasa isn't a Titan. I don't know. Maybe I want a girl obsessed over me, but
scout waifu is what I should have said.
Yeah, but I don't portray myself at all like Eren, so
yeah, me neither.
It's hard to get behind that. So I like this scene. Reiner is either losing it or trying to confuse everybody. It turns out he's losing it. Because he starts talking about getting promoted for all the hard work they've done in the last couple days. They've barely had any sleep, any food, any water. And like he even asks, he's like, where did they get that cannon back at the castle? Because it really saved my butt. And he's like, I'm really glad Krista stitched me up afterwards because, and I really think I'm falling for her. And I think she has a thing for me, for herself.
Yeah.
Of course, all this does was just piss off Eren because he cannot control his temper. And instead of being pissed, he should be confused like Ymir is, like, what is going on? And like we as the viewers are like, is he all right?
At first I thought that when he said I'm gonna get promoted, I was like, oh wait, the Titans have like a promotion system?
Same here. That's where I thought it was too, until he said the other stuff.
Yeah, no, he's talking about like, oh, I'm gonna get promoted by the Scouting Legion. He's got like a weird dual personality thing going on. Right.
Which I'm going to get into right now. But Ymir has to hold Eren back because Eren just fucks everything with his out of control emotions. God, I love my notes. I write these things, I read them later, and I'm like, yep. Ymir asks Bernholt if he knows what's going on with Reiner, who seems very confused by their reactions because they're like, what do you mean what's wrong with me? And like Bernholt has to remind him that they are not soldiers but warriors. And this is where Reiner has a quick flashback of himself, Annie, and Bernholt watching Marco getting eaten by a Titan. And like he's confused. He's like, why is he getting eaten by a Titan? And like Annie and Bernholt are like, what? But of course, Eren is an idiot when it comes to everything. So it gives a perfect reason for this show to explain to us what's going on by the words of Ymir. Basically, his original goal was to break the wall, but after playing soldier for so long, he has trouble discerning between which one he actually is now. He's having lots of moral dilemmas. He's actually started to basically care for everybody. So his soldier and warrior, which we are calling two of his personalities, are intermingling, and he has trouble discerning which one is the real him, which is cool.
That is pretty interesting.
It is something that can actually happen, and especially under stressful situations like the ones he's in. So yeah, it makes sense. But Eren then asked him what they felt when he told them about how the boulder they kicked landed directly on his house, trapping his mother. This is a stupid question because obviously Berthold would have been like, oh fuck. But then Reiner was genuinely concerned because he was stuck in his soldier persona. Yeah. Eren is an idiot. I don't know why they write him the way they do.
Well, Eren is having trouble putting all this information together, but I wanted Eren to ask this question because like I was thinking like, what the fuck was Reiner thinking when he asked Eren like to just come with him, like the person whose like mother they're basically directly responsible for murdering, like. So yeah, I understand Reiner's reasons for it now, but I wouldn't necessarily forgive him for being just like dual personality. I would say like, get your shit together. You murdered my mother.
No, I wouldn't forgive him. But as Eren, I would understand the stupid dual personality. It would be a question for Bertolt, not Reiner.
Yeah, that's true.
But like he's addressing Reiner the entire time. Right?
Oh yeah, basically. Yeah. He's in like a blind rage. So yeah.
Yeah. But Eren goes on and he's like, you're not soldiers or warriors. You're just murderers. And Reiner yells back at him because it's angered him to be called this. And I'm not really sure why that causes Eren to calm down. It's just whatever. And nothing Eren does makes sense to me. And then Eren, like, he just declares he'll do everything he can to make sure they die in the worst way possible with the look of an insane man in his eyes. And like Ymir's like, stop being childish. Like Ymir's the voice of reason in this situation, and I mean, if you want to look at like a perspective like that, that makes sense. But it shows kill me when they have main. Fortunately, this show, one of the main characters, doesn't ruin it for me.
Yeah,
that's very fortunate. Unfortunately, Souta ruins it for me. And Recreators, it's fortunate that Aaron does not ruin Attack on Titan for me, because a lot of the other stuff's actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. But Ymir goes on. They ask him what they know about the Monkey Titan. She then goes on to speculate, because she has at least half a brain of more than what Aaron does, that they do know about it, and if they can get to him, they can go home. So Reiner says you should join us because we know you can be trusted. And Ymir's like, what the freak are you talking about? But Reiner's like, well, we do know your one goal is to protect Krista, and that's basically what I want also. So we share that.
Yeah. And
it would definitely be better for her to side with them, or otherwise just chance it with Aaron and relying on him. And don't ever rely on Aaron. He loses everything he ever does. Ymir basically silently sides with Reiner. Aaron notices this, and he's like, shit. But then, the scouts are on the horizon, and we see that there's smoke signals in the distance, and Aaron makes a quick note that there's only an hour left until sunset, and the Titans below them will be quiet for the night. End of episode.
Yeah, so basically I just hope that Aaron stops screaming for 2 seconds and can talk to Ymir. I just so badly want to find out more about Ymir's backstory, because that was so intriguing to me. And I don't think it's necessarily going to happen next episode, because the scouts are encroaching on them right now, and they're probably going to have to either fight or run.
Yeah, we don't know why she's a Titan, or why she even knew she was a Titan.
Yeah.
We know how Aaron found out he became, when he transformed into Titan. We know why he kind of figured that out, but not necessarily why he can transform. But we're totally assuming his father is involved. But with Ymir, we have none of this.
Yeah. So we may not find out until Ymir is reunited with Krista yet again. Who knows? But
I mean, I unfortunately read farther ahead in the manga. I forgot most of the things, but I do know that Ymir does not shove Aaron off the branch and dies, which I would hope would happen.
Yeah,
because I hate his character.
Aaron's not dying anytime soon.
I just feel like he's there to just show how much smarter everybody is.
Yeah, Armin is the one who's smart around him, and Mikasa is the one who's actually capable, and he's just blind rage, pure emotion, constant.
And he's there just as a point, as comparison, so it makes the other two look better.
That's kind of true.
I really, and I mean, in a sense, that is good writing, but it infuriates me a little bit, because I'm just it's fucking Aaron again saying something stupid.
Typical.
Now
Aaron.
I gotta sit here and listen to it.
So yeah, I hope this returns to action next week, because I've had enough of the 2 talky episodes and I want to get back to it. And the other problem with the talky episodes is they haven't told me the things I want to know. So I just feel like we're pedaling in place, and I just want to get to the meat of the story.
Get used to it.
I know. I'm so worried about what I've read from manga readers.
This show
complaints.
is one of the geniuses of cliffhangers and constantly keeping you guessing, and just at the edge, just wanting to know what this next thing is, and they just lead you along so slightly.
We'll have more of that to look forward to. Anything else on Attack on Titan?
I hate Souta more than Aaron.
Okay, I agree. I also hate Souta more than Aaron.
That's it. That's all I got on that. Are we done?
Yeah, so thank you for listening. Remember to follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on the new podcasts and videos. Our podcast is also available through your normal podcast services like iTunes and Google Play Music, where you could leave us a 5-star review if you want to help us out. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates and other info. And we will all see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.